Welcome to today's meeting, July 15th, 2021 of the Hingham Historic District Commission. This meeting is called to order as of 6:30 p.m. This meeting is being held remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to an order issued by the Governor of Massachusetts dated March 12th, 2020, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. We have two projects on the agenda, 38 Fearing Road and 219 Main Street. Is there anyone on the commission that have a conflict of interest with either of these projects?
No.
No.
All right, so we're both new. We need to announce the voting members. For 38 Fearing Road, it'll be myself, Carol, Catherine, Justin, and Mike. Are you able to be the fifth member?
Yep.
And then for 219 Main Street, again, it'll be myself, Carol, Catherine, Justin, and Robert. Would you be willing to be the fifth member?
Yes, voting for the second time in 2 years.
All right. So we will start with 38 Fearing Road. We have the representative or owner here.
Yes, Al Kearney, the architect.
All right.
And thank you for...
Can you share your screen, Al?
Yep.
Okay, goody.
Goody.
Andrea, I'm sorry to interrupt. I have a message on my screen from you guys. Can that come off? This
What?
meeting is, it says this meeting is being recorded, blah, blah, blah.
Should be a little
I think it
X
just
to the
has
right edge.
Yeah,
It doesn't, but I'll go up to the right edge. And
or it
see.
says continue and you can just click continue.
Yay, thank you all.
Thank you, Andrea. So yeah, I think I'm hoping everyone has the drawings for the proposed addition.
Yep.
Yep.
And I guess we can go through them. It's a very unique home on Fearing. I don't really know if there are any other Italianate homes in Hingham, so it's it's very special. And what we are considering is removing an addition that was put on the back of the house at some point in time that was, it's a little bit awkward in its relationship to the home, the original home. So it, if you have the photographs, you can, I took photographs of all four sides, and it's sort of tacked on the back, and it doesn't respond to the house in a clean fashion. It's sort of forced. And this house offers a few challenges with respect to its style and the beautiful cornice and the detailing and the tower and the turret and the porch and the detailing. It just goes on and on. It's a lovely, lovely home. So they chose to, at that time, I'm thinking they went below the oversized cornice detailing and incorporated a back addition as best they could with a lower roof height. And so it really doesn't work. There's an odd stepping situation within the house itself and low ceilings. So this new addition would replace that and align with the existing cornice detailing and sort of honor the existing house. And it's larger, but still not massive. It's just, this home presents from the streetscape as a fairly substantial home, but it really is it's a small home. It doesn't have a lot of square footage, just it's impressive from the streetscape. So this addition out the back would sort of tie in nicely with that cornice line and the roof line and the window patterning and those kinds of massing, overall massing sort of decisions that were important to me as I sort of got into the idea of adding on to the back of this house. So And so aligning ended up being the best decision, in my opinion. I could have gone above the existing cornice line and raised the house 2 feet off the back. That may have worked. I just don't think it was appropriate. So this is not diminutive to the main body of the house. It's adhering to the architecture that the house is offering, while maintaining the streetscape and the presence of that house on that site. So that's
Al,
the.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you fire up your sharing screen?
Can I do what with it?
Just share your screen. We want
how
to
do
see
I-
your plans.
Oh, do you have them in front of you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's helpful to see them. Everybody can see them at the same time, and you can.
All right.
Can you do that?
No, I'm trying.
Okay, or I'll do it.
You could do it. Maybe.
Oh, okie dokie, artichoke.
Okie dokie, artichoke.
I've never
Yeah.
heard that before.
You haven't?
No.
Oh.
Is it there? Did you okie dokie it, artichoke?
Not yet, but I will. Just give me a minute. A minute. All right, so. Okay. No. Sorry. I need to focus.
Don't we all?
Okay, so we're looking for 38 Fearing. And let's see, application and exhibits. And I need to share my screen. And why am I not being able to? Hold on.
Well, Andrea's searching. Can you tell us the date?
Oh, I see it. I'm
The date of the
in.
house?
Wait a minute. Here it is. There she blows.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
there. Everybody
you.
can see it?
That's it.
Do we have a
Okey-dokey.
date that it was built, do you know?
1830. Wait, hold on. No, I take that back. 18. It's 1810, right? Does anyone want to chime in?
1810, that early?
No. No, I'm reading from the historical documents. No,
It's more Victorian, isn't it?
detail the family retained.
I shall get the.
Eighteen 68.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Yeah, mid-19th century then, yeah.
And do we
It
know
is.
whether the tower staircase is original to the house?
Yeah.
Must be.
It is a truly beautiful house. It's a perfect example of Italianate. I agree. I think it is the only one in town.
Yeah,
It's incredible. I know. It's very special.
other than the Lincoln Building.
Well, that's
Oh, no.
Ersatz.
Commercial.
Well, that is
Rebuilt is an Ersatz one, yeah.
Why? Because it's new?
No, because it doesn't have it has that ridge around the top, and that takes away from the Italianate architecture.
Yeah.
Well, they had to, it was, never mind.
They
All
call
right.
it that, yeah.
So yeah, 1868.
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you.
For sure.
And
And
It's really
this is a view of that addition you were mentioning, Al. That we've switched right there.
so that's the addition of the back. You can see to the left. That was added. I don't know when. I don't know exactly when that was added, but it's not original to the home. It has that bay window and
Yeah.
yeah. And then there was another, I think, an added-on bathroom addition. And so yeah.
Well, they tried to maintain the style, it looks like, but
Yeah, they
as
tried.
best they could.
It was a challenge because they went below that cornice line, and they had to sort of compromise a lot of the interior space to make that exterior expression happen. So it really doesn't really work on the inside. So that was the challenge here, is to, you know, create an addition out the back that really honors the main house and works both inside and outside. So yeah, that's the site plan.
Al, you want to take us through your plans?
Yeah, which would you want to start with the floor?
Well, the site plan is here. Where do you want to go?
The site plan. We can start with the site plan.
There you go.
That one. So you can see the original footprint, and then the cross-hatched area would be the proposed addition. So the addition would be removed, and this new structure would be put in place, and honoring the original home. So again, that's the goal is to sort of really honor the main tower, the main porch, the main structure, all of that. And so, yeah, this is the first floor. And I didn't include the original sort of footprint, but that the addition has a kitchen in it. It's sort of it leads to a laundry area, and it's really just not anything worth preserving. And it's very suspect structurally too, but beyond that, so this would be a new side entrance porch, a covered porch that replicates the front porch. All of the detailing would honor the original detailing, and it's beautiful. And I can show you pictures. We can get into that if we need to. So there's all of the elevations that I'm imagining, and so it's making it's sort of trying to find the best resolve, because it's a challenge to tie into this beautiful old home. But I think this
And
works.
Alan, these views that we have in front of us now, this is all the proposed.
Yes.
And it's a little hard to distinguish where the existing is. I guess.
So the photos might help. So
the photos would help, yeah.
Yeah, so the views encompass all of the existing, the photographs, those. So there's you can see the tower, and then that first full height intermediate element. That's there are bedrooms, and it's a den on the first floor. And the mass to the left here on this image will be retained, and those two separate jogs would be replaced by this proposed addition. Very similar to what they're doing now, but they would be higher and a little bigger in footprint. So
And can I ask one question with respect to that photo, Andrea, if we could go back to the photo, that one more, I think, for the next one, that one.
Yep.
So the proposed addition looks like it would come out as far as that, what I'll call the first jog out.
correct.
Yeah. Just wanted that orientation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Al, how are you tonight?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, thanks. Just a quick question. Do we have a date on this edition?
I don't have one. I couldn't find one.
How about just based on the foundation work, or, because I've been in this part of the home and I agree with you, it is really awkward, but I think it's pretty old.
Yeah, I would say 20s. If I had to guess, I would say early, 20th century. That's a guess.
So Andrea, is there a way to find out like when this was built? First,
It might be the 30s. It's based on some of the appliance layout, sort of.
Yeah, I can try and access the property card and
I
see.
think the windows are all, really definitely old, and it seemed like a lot of some of the details were older. I agree, it's super awkward and narrow. That back kitchen space is awkward, but it would be great to know before we go
Sure.
too far.
I'd like to know. I'm curious about that.
Yeah.
So let's see. That's the idea of this, is just to make it better, make it more functional. And then the interior work would sort of there's a back stair that really doesn't work. It's almost dangerous. And there's that beautiful front tower stair, which will be preserved. And then a new secondary stair created that's up to code, and it just sort of leads to the second floor bedroom layout. And then the windows would be just exactly what the windows are doing now. The very same, 2/2, and all of the detailing and moldings and trim work. And then there's the rear elevation, the south elevation that would just bring in a lot of light to the back of the home. So you can't see that from Fearing, but it's something that you may want to respond to. I'm not sure. And then there's also something. There's a chimney that's in the center of this home now. You can see it in the photographs. And based on this layout, and it's a non sort of functioning chimney, but
This one, Al, or this one? What is
it's
it?
not show. I didn't show it being removed. That's my bad. That's new. The one the cursor is on now.
This one here?
That's existing to remain.
And this is new.
That's new. And there's a third. If we go to the photographs, I'm proposing that we remove it. So right there. So if you stay in that photograph and you go to the center chimney right in the middle, that one there. That's the one that's out front remaining. The one to the right of that would be removed.
Why?
So,
What are you thinking about? It's not useful inside?
it's not useful inside. It doesn't attach to any fireplace. It's just there it is in the middle again. It's not that tall one. It's the one behind the tallish one.
So in 1868, what did they do to heat the house?
They had a fireplace, but it's been abandoned. So we could dig into the drywall or the plaster and find out just what that firebox could be. But right now,
We don't get into what you do inside, but
I know
that a fireplace looks like. How did they heat it?
Yeah, no, it was doing something back in the day, but it's not doing anything right now.
Would it mess up your design inside to leave it?
Yeah, I mean, I could work around if I had to, but it does mess it up.
That's likely the original heat source of the home.
Yeah.
And that fireplace closest in that view to the within the porch structure, that was added at some point. That's not original to the original structure. The original front structure did not have that fireplace chimney there. So
I mean, the chimney to the right in this image.
Yep.
Sure,
That's not original to the original home.
Yeah, that does not look like an original.
Is that being removed, Al? That right?
No, that's staying. That's going to stay.
It seems inordinately tall, though.
Yeah, it is. I don't know why. Maybe it didn't draft well and they kept adding to it. I don't know, but it's not original to that original structure, and I can't explain why that chimney is so tall, other than maybe a drafting issue.
Right. It is an odd-looking chimney.
Yeah.
It's
I wonder if the this odd chimney, this extra tall chimney, if the other chimney is defunct, this chimney could be made short. Is it going to be a gas fireplace in the kitchen or a wood burner?
Right now, it's wood burning, and it's going to stay that way unless however this takes shape, and through these discussions. But yeah, that would be the idea. You can see it on drawing A1 in the kitchen area. That's the existing fireplace that's there now.
As far as I can tell, the problem with the tall chimney on this side is that it's all on the outside of the house, which immediately says 1900s or something. It's
Yep.
Chimneys were to heat the house, so they would have been indoors, not stuck on the outside.
Exactly.
Al, where is the suspected firebox for the chimney that you're proposing to remove? And what room would that kind of fall?
If you look at drawing A1, it would be similar to the location of where I'm calling for a new fireplace, which would be a gas insert in the den. So that's approximately where where there might be a fireplace, and that chimney is right above there, but it just gets in the way. It's right in the middle of the hallway on the second floor, so that's the problem.
Oh, on the second floor, it's in the hallway.
Yeah, it just ends up right there. I mean, yeah.
So Al, if we look at drawing A1, is the suspected firebox in the pantry?
Yes, it's right in that general area. Yes.
Somewhere in there, and it's not visible today.
There's no mantle. There's nothing. It's walled off. So I guess, the history of the house would suggest that it was heating the home back in the day, and it's not doing that anymore. And maybe they added that secondary fireplace and chimney when they did that addition. That might make sense when they sort of, brought the house up to modern standards.
I think this is definitely a site visit worthy home. There's a lot going on here, and it's a little difficult to see is there any way out to put each side of each facade next to a photograph so we can see kind of side by side how it's changing? It's forth between the sides because they're all so boxy and similar, so that it's a little bit.
I know the challenge would be the photographs are showing two sides and the schematic drawings are showing just that one side. So
right.
They can try to talk us through it, but it might be more difficult.
Yeah.
It might be confusing than I don't know.
Maybe we could.
I agree. It would be worth a site visit.
I mean, you can see on the front elevation on drawing A3, I'm calling that the east elevation. You can see that tall chimney, and that would correspond to that, the photograph of the front angle, sort of a northeast elevation from the photograph. So again, I don't know if I can actually explain.
I think
It does, I know it presents as a boxy sort of presentation, but the house that's just sort of how the house is.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the sort of, again, the roof lines, the cornices, the low hip, all of those details would remain true to the main house.
Are all of the present existing windows 2/2?
Yes. Except for, the rounded window in the turret.
Which would have been early for 2/2. 1868.
I wonder, it may have been right on the cusp of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I see the challenge you have, Al, with trying to make this subordinate to the existing house, given its style and the roof lines. And, typically we like to see the roof line dropped or some other thing. I think you're bringing it in on the sides, which helps create that difference. I think one of the things I'm kind of focused on here is the window patterns. I think the way you've got them with the ganged windows, I think there could be some more consistency with the main body of the house, just in terms of the window sizes and patterns, and maybe there's not so many ganged windows together, which that in itself starts to create the separation from the existing house. But I think stylistically, taking a look at those windows and maybe trying to connect their appearance better to the existing structure would be helpful to look at.
Yeah, it's one of this that balancing act, trying to bring in as much light as possible, but honoring the main home at the same time. So that's where I'm at right now with that.
And what's the, given the roof is pretty flat, is this a rubber roof, or are you able to do asphalt shingles up there? What are you planning?
It would be a rubber roof. Right now it's sort of a roll roofing, old school stuff, but this would probably be a membrane. You don't see it, which is the beauty of this one. Right.
And are you replacing the roof entirety?
Say again? Yeah, I think that, this house is going to go through a sort of a pretty extensive restore.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I missed that out. Was it the rolled roof? Is that what you called it? A rolled roof?
Yeah, it's an asphalt.
Is that a tin?
Asphalt roll, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I agree with Catherine. I think in particular, this house should be visited. My eye keeps going to the triple windows in the back, but I don't know how it's placed on the lot. Maybe you don't even see that back part of the house unless you drive into the driveway or something. So I think it'd be great to go visit.
I don't think you'd see the rear elevation at all. There's on the left side elevation that's on the screen, the two pair up and bottom on the far left of triple windows that you'd see from Faring Street. The addition set back, it looks like it's set back 4 feet or so, 3 feet or so.
2 feet, yeah.
2?
2, and then there's the secondary jog of 8.
And on the right side elevation, what looks like 2 sets of French doors or sliding doors or something, they're
Yes.
kind of out of view in the back.
Yeah, they're pretty obscure. I don't know if you could even.
Your neighbors can't see them.
Yeah, they kind of because of the setback and the offset with respect to the existing house. It's a pretty oblique view corridor.
Mm.
But again, you can see it if you stood there and sort of aimed at it. But it's pretty subtle.
Does anyone have any comments on the side porch?
I have some thoughts on that, Tracy. So I'm wondering, I'm looking at the floor plan, I'm wondering if the porch could be tucked in behind the main mass of the home and have the corner board of the main body of the home preserved. Maybe giving that corner board a little bit of space so that the main box of the home stands on.
I thought engaging it was the cleaner resolve, but I understand where you're coming from, and I can look at that. Yeah.
Or perhaps just tucking it. It looks like on your first floor you've got. Love to see it tucked fully behind the corner of the den, just so the main body speaks to of what it originally was. Is there a way to scooch all that in or over, or make the study a little smaller in order to achieve that?
Lose
So
some
the study's pretty tiny now, so I'm really trying to. The goal is to really add quality square footage here without really going overboard. So these rooms are fairly understated as they're drawn. So I understand where you're coming from, but there's not a lot of additional square footage being really considered here. It's pretty modest. It's a beautiful home. We're trying to marry to it as best we can, but it's a fairly modest addition. But I know it's a sensitive home. I get all this.
It also looks like that the left side elevation, that lower left corner on the screen right now, we're trying to make that be the main entrance of the home. It looks
It'll
like
be the side entrance, but yeah,
it'll be the side entrance. It looks
that would be the one.
prominent right there. Yeah.
The mudroom, yeah, that would be where life lives.
Yeah.
And the rendering I don't know if the rendering, can you show the rendering, Andrew? It sort of depicts, that shows, and if you could, there's a view of that, one of the photographs has that same view, and you can see the addition isn't that,
Is that it?
no, the other one more.
So that mudroom entrance would go where the bulkhead is in that other photograph.
No, the bulkhead is where it is. It could,
Right there.
One more. Yeah, that's the bulkhead. If you go back one more, Andrea. One more. Huh? That one. That's the view from Faring. That's, in my opinion, one of the most important views to preserve. So
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah. And where you can see where the addition is to the far left, and that would come off, and then we have this larger addition. So that's what the
Where
rendering.
that bulkhead is, oh no, I guess you're right that the entrance is just past that bulkhead segment. Yeah.
I wouldn't change anything from the streetscape.
Right. No, no, exactly. It's beautiful. You can't touch it.
If we go back to the picture that shows the side entrance, it looks like it's been carefully styled to look like the front porch,
Yes.
front entrance. To keep it not looking as important as the front entrance, is there a way to modify the look either by size or detail, make it more simple?
Oh, I guess so. That might be worth exploring. I just thought honoring the front porch decan, and it's a smaller version of the front porch, and it's just by the nature of being further in the lot, is secondary to the main porch.
But it creates some ambiguity about which is the main entrance. Yeah.
Does it?
A little bit. As I look at that image right there, that left-hand mudroom entrance starts looking like this is where you should go.
I think I just was too heavy on the pencil on that one.
It could be. That could be it. It might be pencil.
It could just be simpled down a little bit.
I agree with Dustin, though, and it does look like the porch, the original main door is sort of the side porch door, and this is the more grand, formal entry. It does look like now the porch becomes an afterthought.
If I were going to the ball at this house, I'd go to that left door.
Are you sure?
In your tuxedo?
I don't know.
I think all the old houses we've looked at, the side entrance is a side entrance. It looks like a place for the kids to run in and out. And this to me is competing with what's out front, and it's the main grand look of the house.
Well, also people who are visiting would probably come into the driveway and go to that side door rather than the front door.
Yeah.
This happens with many of our homes.
All over. Yeah.
Right. So I guess I'm trying to find the balance between real life and honoring the streetscape of the door. But
right. I think Carol had it right, trying to simplify that.
Oh, nice. So the site visits, that's certainly a good idea.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, we jumped the gun a little bit and went right in the comments before asking if there were any neighbors or butters that were on and had any comments or.
I am the next door neighbor, and I would be pretty much, I think, the only neighbor with a clear view of the what would be the left hand. I'm Tom Bright. I live at 34 Fearing Road. I've known this house for 65 years. I've lived next door to it for 35, but my godparents lived there when I was growing up. And I'm very familiar with the oddities of the house. I have no problem with this proposal as it is. If you have refinements you want to make, okay. That's between you and the owners. But I think it will have next to none impact on the streetscape, and the livability of the house would be improved. I actually sent copies of the online plans to Nancy Watkins Denig, who lived there in the 1950s and early 60s. And she wrote back and said, it looks like a good project for them as well as for the neighborhood. I would think the back end of the house was in fact always an afterthought, set 2 steps lower than the rest of the second floor. No more passing through one bedroom or den to another. I know I've talked to Jim Robinson and David over the years. And I think they would like to live in this house. So, anyway, I really think that whatever is done will have very little impact on the neighborhood, other than the construction, which will take forever. But.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to, Al, I can give you a call and we can talk about time for a site visit. The
Certainly.
next hearing is on August the 19th. That's our next meeting. So we'd be continued to that. And I'll give you a call and see what's convenient in terms of a site visit, okay?
Beautiful.
All right.
If we could if you wouldn't mind staking it out, at least staking out the corners.
Yeah, no problem.
I think that'll be helpful, especially as it relates to the barn structure there.
Okay, good. Thank you, Michael.
Okay.
So I'll wait to hear from you, Andrea, on a Saturday.
Yes, I will give you a call tomorrow probably and post some dates.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, next on the agenda is 219 Main Street.
So I'm just concerned, Sean, can we hear you?
Can you hear me right now?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, good.
good. It all worked out, I think.
Okay, good. I'm glad. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. How are you doing tonight?
Yes, Sean.
Sean Papich from Sean Papich Landscape Architecture, 222 North Hingham. And at 219 Main Street, the Mammaries. I have a question for you. Do you want me to share my screen with the sheets that I sent in? Or how would you like to do it?
That sounds fine.
I'll see if I can and see if that works out.
Okay.
Okay. Can you see that right now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Pull some of these things out of the way so we can see them. Hopefully you can see some of the existing conditions photos at it pretty much as it is today. So maybe we look at those first.
Mm-hmm.
This is the view from further up Main Street as you are looking at the garage, main house, extension off to the rear. Another kind of oblique shot of the main house. Straight ahead on the main house and a little bit further down on Main Street looking back. And then even further still out toward the edge of the right-of-way street. So those are the images that we were putting together so you know exactly what we're talking about. I think you're familiar with the project anyway.
Construction's been delayed for lack of materials?
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't. I have no idea.
It's been looking like that for months.
For a while, hasn't it? It sure has.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I really don't know. I don't know why it's delayed at the moment or why it's slowed down.
It's my understanding that they're waiting for the windows.
Oh, so I was afraid you're saying I hope they're waiting for the landscape architect to finally get to something. I was glad you didn't say that. But
The windows are boarded up right now, so that's probably it.
yeah, they put the plastic over them and keep the weather out a little bit. So, so we were trying to get moving on final design, or at least as we've gotten to this design, and certainly going through our submission with you, and then finalize after there gets to be some amount of approval that happens at some point. So I'll go through that. This is the plan view. Again, the main house here, the garage, Main Street, right in this area. And what we were proposing to do, certainly with the garage, you know that we have to come into the garage. So we have a parking area out front. Funny property lines in that area. The property line really peels back quite a ways away from the street and over. I believe this is all town property to this edge. So it's funny, it really drops back from the edge of the street. So anything we do, we've got to stay off of that edge, certainly in far enough back. So the driveway extends in pretty close to how you see it today. Currently, we have proposing an asphalt driveway with granite cobble border and accents in these areas that you can see. I'll get to some of the images of the proposed materials here in a second, but I thought I would describe these first. We're intending to place a couple of granite posts as you come in and do some sort of edging here, whether it's evergreen or something flowering, we're not sure yet, but something to kind of soften the driveway a little bit. And then in front of the house, there exists a kind of a blocky granite wall that runs along Main Street. What we are proposing to is extend that up further to right in this area to retain some grade there. It would be relatively low, about 1.5 feet, a foot to 1.5 feet in height, about 1.5 feet in total.
Sean, is that what it is now?
There's granite right here. Yeah, it's all sitting at that height. You do this, scan back down. Make you dizzy if I go too quickly, I apologize.
Okay.
You see this?
Yeah.
Granite that exists now?
It's just the right height to sit down and rest.
Yeah. When you're
That's
facing
what I
the hill.
I could have used it today.
What about bringing up beyond that point, though, to the end of the property on the upper side?
You know, I think it's helpful to let Sean just finish the proposal first of all.
Yeah, thank you. We wanted to extend it to the point that we felt like we needed it. And I felt like we needed it if we extend on to this area. And so I felt like we needed it right to that point, and almost kind of cover the main body of the house itself. I don't believe we need that extended beyond. I think it works pretty well, the main body of the house, and then let the driveway be the driveway. Because you start to get into a situation where the property ownership, the right-of-way, starts to fall back right there. So we have to be cognizant of that. The driveway can go through there. It already does today, right through there. But in this area, it starts to peel back away from the street. So we felt like we would drop it right in that area. In that way, we were going to come up 3 steps here, make those out of stone. And then what you're probably kind of wondering about is how does this house that sits a little high out of the ground, how does it kind of anchor to the ground? And our proposal is to do a stone wall that wraps around the front with steps up onto the landing and having a stone terrace out front, acting much like a front porch, except more of a landscape feature. So as you step in, you have a stone terrace, stone wall, plantings between the terrace and the wall. So something very simple, low evergreens, a barrier for somebody to not fall off, but also to soften the landscape, kind of softening it in some way here too, to the left. And then you have stone landing getting you up, and you basically have to take 3 risers into the house. You need to come down about 3 to get down below the top of foundation. So that's not uncommon for most houses. You got to get below the top of foundation structure of the flooring. And that's what we've done there. Come down 3 risers, landing in 2 steps. And so we believe that that kind of anchors it to the grade. In this location right here, it's about a 30-inch high wall, but as you can see, and as you know from seeing it, and it drops down here, when you look at this picture, it keeps tailing away and dropping down toward the corner of the property.
Mm-hmm.
So the wall, whoops, sorry, a little delay on this clicker. This ends up being 4 to 4.5 feet in height, depending on how we fuss with this grade on this end. And it's only about 1 foot tall here. So the wall starts to expose more of itself here, but it's only about 30 to 32 inches right in this location. And then wraps around and ties back into the foundation. So it's 30 to 32 inches of wall facing Main Street? Right there, right there. And down here, it's closer to anywhere from 4 to 4.5 feet in height. Haven't decided what kind of plantings, or if we're going to put some plantings to the outside edge of that yet. Just not quite there yet. The intention is to really set this up as if it were a front porch, but it's out of stone and it doesn't have a big railing or anything like that, because we have some
shrubs here and a decent width of planting bed. So we feel like it'll sit in there and anchor in a lot more nicely than what you see it today, sir.
So Sagan, you may have said it already. Is there a wall around the perimeter of that patio area?
That's correct.
There is a wall, so that if you were walking on the patio, you would, your toes would kick a wall, or does it drop off like a cliff?
Well, if it kicked the wall, you'd be walking through the planting bed, doing that by, about 4 feet. So we have a planting there the planting bed's about 3.5 feet width. So the intention of this is a planting bed buffer to the wall. So we think it'll settle in pretty nicely. Plant material to the sides of the house, keeping it very simple. Walkway coming to the side door, and almost treating this as a little bit of a courtyard. What we were proposing to do is to do a picket fence that drops back to the edge of the slope. There are some boulders on site that we were considering putting some boulders up to retain where some of that grade is now. They unearthed a lot of stone, but this would be a picket fence with a small gate, another picket fence with maybe an arbor. So really kind of create a little bit more of a courtyard going back and stepping down to the rear yard. In the back is more rear terrace, low seat wall, and a pergola. Some of this stuff is quite a ways to the back. I'm not sure if that's really something you're as concerned about. We're talking about a little stone terrace off of the back of this wooden porch that comes down. Little garden spaces, essentially toward the rear area. Illustrating some plant material along the edges. That really hasn't been finalized exactly what that is. Existing, mostly it's lawn out in this area. That would stay as is. Again, we would do more of a shrub bed or low hedge here along this side. In terms of materials, example of stone wall with stone, a couple different, field stone riser with the tread. Just an example of antique granite steps, stone wall. Certainly an example right down the street of cobbles and granite posts. Terraces are intended to be either a bluestone or a granite of some kind. Example there of a seat wall also, and stone terrace. Also illustrating a pergola to the rear. It's an example of a pergola. It won't look exactly like that, but it's an example of one. An example of picket fence with a arbor piece. If that's helpful, kind of show you generally what each of these elements is. I know you already started to have some questions, and you probably have some more, so we can chat about that now if you'd like to.
Sean, could you explain that again about the property line? I assumed the property line went right along the stone wall that runs up front of the property, but you're saying there's town property on the inner side of the?
Yeah, so what it is the right-of-way line, so that's the town property line, right?
Yeah.
The street that runs along the walkway, and then at some point after it gets past here, you can see my cursor, past kind of on the sheet to the left of the house.
Right.
It peels back and drops back quite a ways. So the area that you might think is theirs, say from the out around to the side of the garage coming out, this becomes town property. And that goes back, about 20 feet back from the sidewalk is where it picks up here.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Yeah, it's odd. There's a really odd, and there's another parcel here that belongs to somebody else. I can't recall who has that. It did feel like I saw it on a survey. we can't really work in that area. We got to come to the side of it, stay out of it.
Have you talked to the town about deeding that over? I mean, what good is it to the town, that little sliver?
No, I don't believe the homeowner has done that. We really haven't been directed to do anything like that at all.
So before we get into commission member comments, are there any butters? And if so, please state your name and address, and please address your comments to me.
Hi, this is Mark Fabro, my wife Deirdre Fitzgerald. We live at 221 Main Street. So we abut, looking at the mapping to the left, we live in the W.B. Lucy house, which is built in 1902, 120 years before this house. We have been raising our family at 221 Main Street for the last 8 years. We moved here from another location in Hingham because we love the historic house, both inside and out, the way it looked from the street, the interesting property, the neighboring homes and people, and the location. Today, we are extremely disappointed and angered by the lack of courtesy shown by Jim and Mary Catherine Mamary, their developer and their landscape team. They've never introduced themselves nor reached out to us at any point in this process. From early designs, clear cutting the trees, to the chain link fence, to this presentation. We feel let down by the commission at this step in the process. We had made ourselves our concerns abundantly clear over the last 2 years. This presentation shows no recognition nor care for our property and the concerns we've aired. The plan as shown is incomplete and lacks necessary detail. We received notification by mail yesterday, just 24 hours before this midsummer July meeting. I would ask the commission, or Jim or Mary Catherine, how you would feel if you received 24-hour advance notice, or by chance were away, maybe on vacation, and never knew there was a meeting 24 hours later. We're traveling and we're calling in for this very important meeting. From day one, when Jim Magner first acquired the tree-filled property with intent to develop and sell it, we expressed concerns to him and this commission. At multiple commission meetings, once Jim and Mary Catherine acquired the property to build their one-bedroom home, as well as site visits to the property, we communicated serious concerns that were duly noted and reported. Number one, the integrity and sustainability of the entire hill and slope that is behind these drawings, inclusive of trees, ground cover, shrubs, from the back corner of the property to Main Street, as well as the stone wall that's depicted in the back of that image. Any potential tree removal and subsequent replacement or alteration of the topography is of utmost importance and would be and should be discussed between owners. No one wants the foundation of a 120-year-old house to be jeopardized by this construction and this landscaping. Number two, the integrity of the front yard and street view of 221 Main Street. Any potential alteration to what exists today and is maintained and has been for decades, and let me make that point, to the left of the garage is and has been maintained by 221 for decades, perhaps 120 years. We do not approve this plan. We have serious, serious, serious concerns. This cannot be approved. We are prepared to discuss. We're open-minded. We expect a level of discussion, and we want to review revised plans. And if need be, we're prepared to take legal action. We have had discussions thus far. We are caretakers of a 120-year-old home with a hand-built stone foundation on the top of a steep hill on the Pear Tree Hill portion of historic Main Street. We will do everything in our power to ensure that this new construction, landscaping and hardscaping does not negatively impact our historic home and its street view. We are disappointed and highly concerned in how this project has been handled, and we expect our point of view to be duly noted and that requested actions be taken. I'd like to turn it over to my wife, Deirdre Fitzgerald.
Hi, good evening. I am Deirdre Fitzgerald. That was my husband, Mark Fabro. We live at 221 Main Street. We have lived in Hingham for 17 years, and we have lived in this home for 8. We are active in the community, and we are proud custodians of a historic home. We are involved in academics. Our children are both at the public schools. In sports, we have been board members of Hingham Sports Partnership, the executive committee of the PTO, and volunteers at the Hingham Historical Society. I am also professionally connected to Hingham as the brand president of Talbot's. I would like to reiterate our serious concern with this matter. I would also like to share where I see accountability. I see it shared across 3 parties. Number 1, this commission. Number 2, Mr. and Mrs. Mamary. And number 3, Sean Papich. The integrity of our home, the sustainability of the foundation, and the impact to the sightline is grave concern. And finally, I want to ask the commission to comment on the timing of this meeting. From my perspective, it is unacceptable to receive notification 24 hours in advance of a meeting of this magnitude. And I'd really like to hear from the committee members. I'd like you to comment on this.
I'll take that one. Unfortunately, I think one of the things that we've tried to maintain through this whole pandemic is our schedules. And normally we send these abutter notices out far in advance. And this time it just didn't happen. The people who need to be doing these things, we don't have the help that we normally have. And so I apologize for that. It's totally on me.
It would not seem as though the desire to hear from abutters is genuine. And that is how we feel. And we are reasonable people.
Understood.
Are there any other abutters?
I asked to be recognized.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is Paul Healy. Present with me tonight is my wife, Esther. We live at 209 Main Street. That house that we live in for over 50 years was built in 1690. Charles II was the King of England. And I've been in front of the Historic Districts Commission multiple times with respect to my own projects. I typically solicit the input of neighbors, because I consider them neighbors, not abutters, to get their views, suggestions. And on a number of occasions, as a result of that, I have altered and modified the plans that I submitted. And I think it's been a better result as well. Turning to the Mammary Project, when Mr. Magner owned this property and initially came in, I supported it because what was proposed and submitted to the district commission, in my view, reflected a balance of structures between 215, 217, and now 219 Main Street. I will say that I was disappointed when the house was built because I feel that the foundation is perched on the site. It's raised it artificially high. There's a 10-foot cellar in there. And I think it's driven the design that we're seeing tonight with respect to the hardscape. I don't know Mr. Papich. I know he's taking his orders from his client, so I get all that. I like the idea of the stone wall that's in front of 219 extending to 217. That wall dives into the ground right around that area, and it goes towards my house where at a certain point it's about 2.5 feet high. It's a very nice looking wall, and that would be a nice tie-in feature. I know in the past, when I had discussed with the Historic Districts Commission the idea of a pergola, that was a bit of a chuckle, and I discarded it as something that was inappropriate. So I see it here tonight. I'm not going to comment, but one thing that I do have a comment on that is of concern is this granite porch, if you will, that is extending towards the sidewalk from the house. And I think that I'm searching my brain and trying to remember where in the community I've seen a granite porch of this design on a cape. We're in the Pear Tree Hill, the Bachelor's Road district. You know, there are porches, they're modest in nature, they're of wood. And I think that this is a sharp contrast to that. And I think that the height of this wall in front of the house, wrapping around to the side, is going to have a jarring look. I could be wrong. I'm not a landscape architect, but my reaction to that is as such. And I joined the Fabros with respect to the detail of this plan. This is a conceptual iteration with no measurements attached to it, so it's very difficult. I can see the topography of it. And what I'm seeing is that the vast majority of this site is about to become impervious. And I know my neighbor, Clark Bedford, is not here right now, but I do remember having, listening to him describe his concerns about water issues when he spoke before the commission the last time this project was in. I'm not trying to, torpedo what the Mammarys want to do. I'm looking forward to seeing the house completed, but I think there's an awful lot going on in what's proposed in front of you on this hardscape. I know the Historic Districts Commission works hard to craft a good design, a good result, and I'm sure you'll do so here. But I think, with what the Fabros are saying, my own reaction to this, I think this gives pause. Perhaps this might be something where, this could be continued. I think to act on this tonight, especially in light of the fact that there's a question as to which abutters got notice, is problematic, and it's an easy ground for appeal. So those are my thoughts. I have not been contacted by the Mammarys. They have lived next to me where the Serafinis now live, and we had no contact with them. I don't expect that to change anytime soon. But this is Pear Tree Hill. This is a very special place. I've grown up here, and it hurt to see that tree grove come down. But I know, I sat on the planning board for many years, and I know that development comes. People have a right to use their property. The Mammarys are designing what they feel they need. But I just ask that they step back a little bit and try to integrate it into the existing streetscape so that this can be the great house that everybody hoped that it would be.
Hi, my name is Esther Healy. I also live at 209 Main Street. I agree with most of what the Fabios have said and also what my husband has said. My concerns are almost exactly the same. I think that the site to me looks overdeveloped. I think that there's too much going on. And the fact that you don't think you could see the pergola from the street is not necessarily true. There's no detail in the sketch as to how big that front landing is from the front door out. But the fact that there's 4 chairs sitting there with leg room suggests that it's pretty big. Also, there's no detail on what kind of border there is between the two houses that might shield the outdoor patio and the pergola from public view. There's very little detail in this thing as to measurements, topography, and so forth. So I would have a hard time opining on it without further detail. Thank you.
Are there any other neighbors or abutters?
There's no neighbors here.
So I think rather than continue discussion, we should continue this application.
Well, hold on.
Go ahead.
Hold on for a second. I think that I should be able to have a chance to at least discuss some of this. This is more detailed than usually what you see on most landscape plans that come in before you. And I know that for a fact because I've been on that commission. We have all the grades that reference heights of walls, all of grading, which is actually usually even beyond what you guys usually see. One thing I would like to comment on is whatever happened before we got involved in the project, I don't know. I do know that I saw the trees down, but we were not involved in that. I'm sorry that the Fabros think maybe I did that or something, but we had nothing to do with that. So I can't really be held responsible for that. There's a few things that we need. We have no intention of doing any grading up into that hillside and above the wall. So the thought that anything we're going to do is going to impact the foundation of their house, it doesn't really make a lot of sense at all. But I can appreciate them not wanting, or at least confirming that we're not grading right up against the property line up along their house foundation. I can appreciate that, certainly. But we have no intention of grading up there. We were really primarily showing work in and right around the house in this area. We may even shore up that hillside that's pretty rough with some of those boulders in that area that are attached to place it next to the existing stone wall. So really, we're not intending to do anything back anywhere close to up the hill, which is kind of off the page here, which is why I didn't represent anything up there. In terms of content into a drawing like this, you've got a lot of content here. It tells you exactly what the grading's doing, exactly the height of the wall. We've shown images of the materials that we intend to use, which even the grading is probably beyond mostly what you guys see on a regular basis. The one thing I would ask, if Mr. Healy is concerned about this being too much in front of the house, we've got a certain grade at the finished floor. We have a certain grade out at the sidewalk. So we have to decide how we break that up. So there is going to be some type of wall. There's going to be some type of wall. Now, whether or not it should be a terrace or whether or not we can try to get a wooden porch or something like that, certainly something to discuss. But it's there because the grade is there. I think that should at least be understood. There's a reason why the wall is there. It's not there just to put a stone wall up in front of the house. It's there to retain that grade. So whether or not we come down 3 risers to a stone wall, or 4, or 5, or 6, or 7, which would start to get a little silly, there's going to need to be a wall one way or the other. That has to happen.
Sean, if I may, Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
Sure.
First of all, I agree with the chairman that I think further discussion of this plan as is probably wouldn't serve any purpose tonight. I think there are a lot of questions. I think there are a lot of concerns that perhaps can be addressed at a site visit where people can really see what's going on. The other thing I want to say is that there have been, since Mr. Magner presented his first plan, which, as Mr. Healy said, was very appropriate for the neighborhood. The builder has changed a couple of times. Mr. Magner sold the property, and there was at least, there was one other builder who I was engaging with. Then all of a sudden, there's another one. And what happened somewhere along the line, this is really not what we approved.
Right.
I have to be honest. Right. And this is not what we approved.
Are you talking about the house itself, Andrea? Or are you talking about the house?
I'm talking about the house. I'm sorry. I'm not involving you, Sean.
No, I understand. I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah. No, this house was supposed, and the chairman at the time, Mike Collard, Ben Burnham, myself, we went out there as soon as we saw what was taking shape, and we had spoken to the building commissioner. Unfortunately, who knows why, but this was not supposed to be so high off of Main Street. Our original plan that we approved showed grading, it was graded far lower on that high end.
Okay.
And
You know how much lower it was? Do you know how?
I can show you because I have the plans, but I'll have to, we can, if you want to come to the office, we can do that.
Sure.
So, and the other thing is, this house was supposed to be pushed back so that it was more in line with the stone cottage next door.
Okay.
So the fact that the current builder decided to, do what he did, it's just, well, he's not even a licensed contractor. He has to, somebody else is the licensed contractor. But he, he's on site and does dealings with the properties. So anyway, I also have to say that Mr. Clancy, our building commissioner, we advised him early on and that the wall in the back, the retaining wall, Mr. and Mrs. Fabro, was a concern. And he has been there to take a look at the wall. And in his opinion, he feels that there has not been any work done that would compromise that grade. So I haven't talked to him for a couple of weeks about this, but that was the last thing he reported. So I don't want you to think that your concerns went unnoticed. So I don't know, Mike Collard, I wonder if you could add anything to what I said, makes it more.
Even if you can give me some input on, I've heard what a few of the neighbors have spoken about, and so I understand what they're saying. If you can give us a little more direction, if there are specifics, the wall's too tall, the wall's not tall enough. The number of steps is going to have to remain the number of steps because I don't have a choice at this point, it's already built. But if you can give input on what you think is too much or what have you, that's what I'm asking for.
Yeah, and I think a site visit would really help do that. Okay. Because people can then see it. Mike?
Andrea, just to be clear, the building as it exists at the moment in its current state does not comply with the approved drawings.
That is correct.
Right.
That is correct. And one of the things we were concerned about particularly was the height of the building, because it looms over, Main Street. And unfortunately, this is one time in my whole time with the town where zoning and historic districts have not worked together, because the builder is entitled to build at the height that he has built, according to zoning regulations. And the fact that it's in a historic district doesn't matter. So we, unfortunately, that kind of hampered our ability to have the building inspector require some changes. So it was very frustrating, I have to tell you. But I would like to hear from my Mike Collard. Please.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Andrea, you described the history pretty accurately, and I think all of those things combined is what's contributing to, the grades in the front of the house, which I think is the biggest challenge to try and remedy as part of this process. So, the house is sitting where it is, and I think what we've got to do is try to figure out a creative way to soften that a little bit, because I don't think what exists now with that wall and that current solution really gets us there yet.
Yeah.
And can I make one more comment? I think Mr. Papich was, I think, accurately saying that there's a lot of detail in this particular drawing, but I think the goal of the commission is to assess the appropriateness of the streetscape, and this information doesn't communicate to me, at least. Maybe I have to use my imagination to imagine what this would look like from Main Street. And at the very moment, my imagination doesn't like what it's imagining.
Thank you.
I'd like to add something, if that's okay. I think the commission at large was really disappointed when the house went up and saw the changes that we did not approve, especially just the height is creating a mass problem compared to the cottage, the neighboring cottage. I guess that horse has left the barn. There's no recourse for the commission. I guess I would say to the butters, though, and the neighbors, that we're equally disappointed and feel terrible that somehow something came along that we didn't approve. And it's frustrating to us as well. I think the porch, the stone masonry work on the front porch is extremely unusual for a historic home. I don't see it as appropriate to this this street or any historic street in Hingham. I've never seen anything like it. And I would say that the job now of the commission is to really minimize and diminish the scale and the mass of the home as best we can. So that's what I'd like to add. But I think a site visit is going to be crucial, and maybe there's opportunity for I don't know, some other people to come to help inform on erosion potential or that kind of thing.
If I may, this is Mark Fabro again. I know that I read my prepared remarks earlier, but I just wanted to comment back sort of to Sean and the Mammarys, and I guess the commission in general in this case. But the reason that the stone wall, it's very important, and it's a beautiful design, and it's very important to stabilizing the slope. But you know, with a project of this scale, of the elaborate detail and all of the investment into this project, an assumption I would have as a neighbor is that you would be looking at that slope, which hasn't been cared for in great detail by the prior owner, that you're not visualizing here. And on a site visit, or if you prepared street view, you would see there's trees that haven't been properly trimmed, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm pretty confident that there would be some action that you and the owner of this property would take to that slope. While it's not depicted here, and it may not be what has been requested at this stage of your project, I'm very sure that that would be addressed, and we want to be sure as abutters with serious, serious concerns that we understand what the vision is, what the maintenance plan is. And we've had multiple landscapers. We had a site engineer look, and certainly they raised concerns. If trees were taken down, if root structures were removed, that would be a real concern. Maybe now, maybe when we move on at some point and the next caretakers come in, it's our responsibility to make sure that this house is stable and safe, and that hillside is secure, and whether that is with the existing trees or any other actions that are taken, but that's very important. The second point is, if you look at a street view to the left of this garage, literally to the left where you have your first tree is where our front yard currently sits. So this yard has been, again, maintained, cared for in some way, shape, or form for many, many years, well over the 20 years that are required. So the fact that this drawing depicts the use of that space is frankly offensive. And so if there was a conversation at any point, I think the direction would have been clearer, and there would have been a better plan for that space. If you look at the topography today, it's very clear where the lines have been drawn in terms of the property and its use over many, many years.
Mr. Chair, may I just add to what Mr. Fabro said? I sent a picture to Jim Magna of Pear Tree Hill being taken down at the turn of the last century. And it essentially, the whole area is cut. And that wall was put up during that time, and it's lasted beautifully. It really is such an impressive piece of stonework. And over time, there's been some large maples that have grown on the slope. And I think Mr. Fabro and Ms. Fitzgerald are genuinely, right to be concerned about this. But I'm getting back to the history of this project a little bit. When the present applicant came in for a modification, I think the rationale was that they wanted the first floor to be a wine cellar for them. And because the neighbors voiced objections because of change in the size of the structure, that was withdrawn. But just looking at Mr. Papich's diagram, if you will, it seems to suggest that the cell is 10 feet in height. And I think that this hardship now with respect to the front of the house and the need to deal with the scale to get down to the sidewalk is a self-created hardship. And I would just ask that the commission keep that in mind as it goes through the deliberative process. I thank the commission for being sensitive to what's going on here. I don't like being a complaining neighbor or a complaining abutter, but this situation has left me little choice but to just speak, truth to power here.
Yes, we're just speaking. Hi. I also have a little concern about the amount of blacktop on this little property. One bedroom cape with what looks to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7, 8, 9 car spots. I don't remember the original plans having anything other than a narrow drive going up to the driveway, to the garage. It's barely got a little bit of grass sticking up here and there. And I think we're all aware of what that does to the town water supply and all that. I think it's just been overdeveloped as if it were a wonderful big 4-bedroom colonial or something. I don't know what to do about the front porch. I don't see putting a 4-foot stone wall in front of a cave. I know there's one Dr. Eldridge's house 2 doors down, but he has a 2-story colonial. It's wooden, it sort of fits there. This looks like an awful massive addition to this little cape.
I think that's why a site visit will be very helpful. So I think we should probably schedule that, and we can ask our questions on site. And Mr. and Mrs. Fabro, I will notify you well in advance so that you can be there. Mr. Healy, Mr. Bedford, I will make sure he is notified as well, and because it's a public meeting. And Mr. and Mrs. Mamary, I hope that you will be able to attend. And of course, Sean, we need you. Okay? So Sean, I'll call you, and then you and I will coordinate a time to do this before the August 19th meeting.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Andrea.
Next are several informal discussions. First one is 392 Main. My understanding is we'll get an introduction to these projects and just get some general feedback. It's not a formal submission with a motion this evening. Representative for 392 Main.
Yes, good evening. My name's Christopher Hall. I'm the architect for this project. Also with me tonight are my associates, Bryce and Eva. Bryce will be manning the controls, as well as the owners are on. Spiros and Athena Gianaros are with us here tonight. Thank you very much for taking some time out of this meeting to take a look informally at our project. I'm sure everybody knows about it, but 392 Main Street was built in 1861. And I'm sure there were several changes to it between then and 2013 when there was a significant renovation that encompassed several additions and a two-car garage. The house suffered a significant tragic fire in December, forcing it to be deemed condemnable. It will be taken down. And so we are here tonight to move on, to help the Gianaroses move on for a new home. It's been an intense process, as I'm sure you can imagine. But we're excited, and I think they are now finally, maybe, at the point of seeing sort of, life afterwards in a new home. So if I could have Bryce.
Chris, real quick, just for clarification, the entire existing structure is being demolished?
Correct.
Because they're currently living in the back half, no?
No, they are not.
Okay. Just using the yard a little bit for.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have some stuff still in the garage, but they're renting.
Understood. No, I remember the photos from last time. So everything that's there today goes down, including foundation.
Correct.
Okay.
So I'm just looking at the existing house for a second. From a site plan standpoint, our approach really is to try to do something that will enable the house to feel a little bit more comfortable on what is a beautiful piece of land. It's 1.3 acres. The house is justified to the north. It's, Bryce, if you could zero in there, it's only about 1.5 feet away from the property line. And it's close to the street. So those two things together with the fact that you really can't experience this nice piece of property from this house. It's dark and they don't really get to see their lot. The two-car garage actually has a fabulous view of the land that drops off to the back, south facing. And so they were going to put a pool back there and make the best of it. And by no means do I want to depict a scenario where they don't love their house. They do. I think after listening to them talk about this house, the takeaway I have from them is that they love the style of the house. They love the high ceilings. They love the depth of the house experientially from the front door moving into the house. And they love the Western porch. They have friends come over. You might have heard that, that's actually the reason why it burnt down was they were trying to extend the usable COVID socializing by meeting with neighbors outside, and they installed a heater in the ceiling, or they didn't, but an electrician installed a heater in the ceiling, which was the cause of the fire. But they love that Western porch. And so I took the things that they liked about the house and the things that they didn't like about the house and tried to put them together with a new structure. You can see from these Google Earth images just how close it is to the renovated church to the north. Even walking around when we were walking the site and staking out where a potential new house would be, we felt uncomfortable because we were actually stepping on the neighbor's property just to get around the corner.
Sorry, it's not 20 feet away?
It's about 1 foot.
That's the existing structure.
Yeah, the existing structure is 1.4 feet away from the property line. And it's uncomfortable, and it's you know, it is what it is. You know, when you buy a house like this, they knew what they were getting, and you know, they're friendly with their neighbors. And but if you're going to build a new house, that's not how you'd be able to do it, and that's certainly not how you'd want to do it. So, without further ado, if I could jump into the plans and explain the siting of the new house, which addresses some of the concerns that the first house did. Bryce, if you could zoom in on that. The red is the footprint of the existing house. And obviously what is black is new. And please don't look at, you know, cars and landscaping or anything like that. I'm not a landscape architect. I don't claim to be. I'm an architect. That will be handled by somebody. Right now, I really, even with our images, we had to show some landscaping. The computer generated images. So please just, you know, ignore that for the moment. The house itself, the 1861 profile of the house is pretty much what we kept in the front and for the front entrance of the house. And yet we stopped it 2 rooms in so that we could turn the house perpendicularly 90 degrees so that we could have the main living spaces look out at the backyard, which is just a wonderful backyard, and it's wonderful southern exposure. Because the 2-car garage is small, the existing 2-car garage, even before this tragedy, they were planning on building a barn to be able to, you know, have bicycles and boats and other cars put in it, and an office for Spiros. So for really economic reasons, we thought that we would try to marry the programmatic requirements of a garage and the wish list of that barn and put it together with this project. From an elevation standpoint, and from taking a look at just some of the statistics, the new house is about 5 feet lower than the existing house. And that's just purely sectionally, but it also sits lower on the site as it pushes back from the street. You can see some faint topographical lines. So it will sit down a little bit more comfortably than the existing house does right now.
And that's just in terms of altitude from, you know, sea level as opposed to
from finished
height from ground level at the building structure.
Right, exactly. So the first floor plan, I know you're probably not too interested in the plan, but there's an entry porch, and then there's the western porch, which is really dialed in as a main space for them to get to out of their great room, to be able to continue to enjoy, you know, watching their kids play soccer and having guests come over and watching the sunset. The main spaces, the dining room, the great room, the kitchen, all face out the backyard. There's a mudroom connector with a back staircase leading to a 3-car side-loaded barn/garage, and then a guest bedroom, maybe someday master bedroom off the back. Second floor, we have bedrooms in the front, 2 bedrooms in the front. One of the, you know, I think I mentioned the street noise is significant. So by pushing it back and insulating some of the key rooms, we're hoping to kind of address some of the street noise. I think they say that their son is used to the street noise right now in the front, so he gets that bedroom, right? And he doesn't mind it. But the rest of the house is pretty self-explanatory. Spiros intends to work from his office post-COVID on a regular basis. So the idea is in that barn, he would have a large office. And from an elevation standpoint, and from maybe we can take a look at the elevations. The architecture is similar to what was there before. I'm not exactly sure how to even depart from the term sort of village farmhouse. It's not quite a Greek revival that's there now, but the idea was to keep the house reasonably quiet and fairly fairly straightforward in its forms, not having too much articulation of dormers and not too active a roofscape when seen from the street. The idea is to make the barn look like it is a barn from the street with sliding doors, vertical siding, a changing in color. And then the house itself, we do have a material sheet, which I can show you. We are thinking of, from a material standpoint, having it be a white clapboard house. We are showing a standing seam metal roof. The barn would be vertical nickel gap siding. The foundation would be veneered with New England fieldstone. We would like to actually take the stones that are currently at the porch. They're very unique. There's a material page. Very unique stones that are currently were used when this was built. Almost, I've never seen them really iridescent. They sparkle, and I don't know whether there's minerals in them or whatever, but they're extraordinary. So we want to use those for the front and for the, as best we can during demolition, to separate them from the concrete and reuse those. In addition, they've been asking if solar panels would be acceptable on the back of the house. They would like to ultimately have a net zero electric bill. So it's a perfect orientation for it in the back. So that's something that we'd like to ask what the board's thoughts on that might be. And I think that's basically it. Thank you. And again,
are you showing the front view of the house now, or is that the back view?
This is the front.
What would the distance be from that front porch to the sidewalk or the street? And what was it before?
So before it was, it's on the site plan. (38.7 feet).
Is that typical of the homes in the neighborhood?
I think the church is even set back. Can we look at the Google Earth image, Bryce? Church is set back a little bit from it.
Houses across the street and so forth. It seems to me that's fairly standard in that neighborhood.
I think it's actually pretty close. I think it's closer than the majority of houses, honestly. I do. I mean, we can obviously confirm that, but my sense is that this is actually unusually close. In fact, when I first turned into the house, I was kind of shocked that that it was so close to the street. If you look to the left, the house to the left is quite a ways back. On the top left Google Earth image, the far left side of that, I think you can see the neighbor to the south, or sorry, to the east, sorry, west, excuse me.
And also on this image, could you gesture to where the garage is, just as a point of orientation? And I'm trying to, am I correct that the garage is towards Main Street?
Bryce, can you zoom in on that image and then put your cursor over the two-car garage to the left, right there? Yep.
So that's the existing two-car garage.
Correct.
But you're saying that came down, or it's coming down?
That will come down.
Everything's coming down.
Yeah.
And the new garage, and I'm looking at A1.1 that shows the garage area sort of off to the right side of the drawing, and I'm trying to orient that with Main Street now. Should be.
I wish these were labeled Main Street and
Yes, that would be very helpful. So that's
I'm
where
having
the,
trouble following it.
yeah,
What would you like labeled? I'm sorry.
that Main Street on, for example, A1.1 showing where Main Street is would be a wonderful, toehold on the orientation.
Okay.
I think a helpful image is A0.1. It shows where the original garage is in comparison to where the new structure is supposed to be. The red dots show the
Yes. Yeah.
and that is really useful to see the depth of where this house is going to sit.
Yeah.
And in relationship to, the old home.
Right, and so it's the barn doors that you mentioned are what face towards Main Street.
Yeah, there's a single barn door that would face Main Street, and it actually is almost at the very back of the existing house.
Yep. Yep.
And Bryce did put the house on Google Earth, if that's a helpful image.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, there you go.
If you could
Sorry
zoom
about that, guys. I was trying to bring it up while you were talking about it.
Bryce, we're impressed with you, Bryce. This is very good.
Thank you. I appreciate
zoom in
it.
on that. Can you zoom in on that, Bryce? And can you quickly change the color of that driveway to something other than gray? I'm just kidding.
Oh, absolutely. Purple rocks?
Purple, yeah. So I think that kind of tells the story.
That does. That tells the story. Yep.
So the front will be back behind the neighbors on either side a bit.
Yep. And actually, I mean, if the commission thought that it should be closer, we could consider that. I thought that actually it would sit more comfortably on this fairly grand parcel,
right,
centered, and have a nice, presentation to the street setback like that.
It might, but I think what we look at is what did it look like originally? The houses tended to be all in a parallel, even up where I am on Main Street. It's almost within inches. The front of the houses are all lined up. It gives it a historic feel. I would be tempted to kind of line it up with the front of your neighbors or something close to it.
Right. When you say within inches, you mean the distance that all the houses are back from the street.
Right.
Yeah.
And look around at all the historic districts down Levitt Street and so forth. They visually appear to be lined up. The other thing I'm looking at is your parking is going to be on the Main Street side of the house. Is there any way to put the parking in the back so we're not looking at cars when we look at your new historic home?
The new historic home.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we can play around with the landscape architect. He can play around with it. We do have a little bit of a retaining wall that we're going to need to side load. We didn't want any garage doors facing the street, and they did want to have a three car capability.
And so this is the view that is from Main Street.
From
Yeah.
Main Street.
So you've sort of taken a house that was long and narrow in all of its components and spread it out.
Yes. Although the original house was long and narrow, but the 2-car garage that was added on to definitely gave it some width. But it was a
that was in the back.
It was a bizarre shaped house for the lot, but we and they loved the shape of the house, which is why we basically replicated it as the main form that you come into and enter. But then once we got past the dining room, we wanted to go left and go right to the south so that, they could take advantage of their backyard.
And I heard you say you didn't think the old house before it burned down was Greek Revival. It appeared to be, but.
Well, I mean, it has some characteristics of Greek Revival, and then it
departs. Age is right for it. The age.
So I mean, it probably, if it needed to be called that, that's the name. But it also didn't have several details, and maybe that happened during the 2013 renovation.
Yeah.
Maybe some of those details got stripped away. what's extraordinary about the house and is perhaps not prevalent to this discussion is the inside detailing of the house is really extraordinary. And it actually was done in 2013. I mean, there is some original detailing, but the contractor who rebuilt it really went all out with triple tray ceilings and just absolutely incredible interior detailing.
It's a shame to have lost that.
So we hope to replicate that where possible.
It seems to me that the barn seems to overwhelm the rest of the house as I look at it there on the left.
Not only that, we tend to not want barns attached to old houses. I mean, we're trying to make this sort of look like an original old house. Barns had smelly animals in it, so they tended to be separated from the house in the back.
I'm having a hard time. I think this is a unique project because we had a historic home and then it was by a fire, and our job as a commission is to be sure this home is appropriate to the neighborhood. We're not trying to reproduce what was there, something that fits in, but it is going to be a 2021 home. So I think we can't get stuck in what it was, but we have to focus on how to using the surrounding neighborhood to take our cues to keep it appropriate in scale and somewhat in its style, having, it's a tricky one for me. I'm having a hard time. I don't know if others are finding that.
Yeah, I'm not trying to imitate board for board old houses, but I do think it should fit in. And it shouldn't catch your eye and say, wow, how did that new big house go in there? We're just talking about the one on the Eldridge property. We're preserving, protecting, and defending old historic districts. It should be something that looks like it could have been there, and to stretch it out this way and make it sort of twice as big looking from the main street, from the mass, just, I'm not.
Right, it feels like it would look different from the rest of the neighborhood, but I think one of the good news pieces of this story is there's lots of room to work with. Yeah. And it sure seems like there's an answer that will be entirely appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing I'm looking at as part of this, because I think, Catherine, you explained it well, we're not necessarily need to recreate what was there, but I think what stands out on this one too are sort of the expression of the materials and some of the details. I think they appear to be a more modern expression of some of those things, and I think if there could be they could be a little more traditional, I think some of those will start to contribute to it being closer in its details to some of the neighboring structures in the district.
Yeah, I'm also thinking, thank you, Mike. I'm also thinking that as I look at this, I'm trying to think of other homes in this Main Street area that have the garage on the same plane, even though this is a sort of a faux barn garage, that they're of equal standing. The garage form is really on the same plane. And often in these older homes, we see the garage tucked behind or in the back of the property. And I'm wondering if there's a way to take the mass of the garage and tuck it behind the house. So you would drive down to the left of the home and tuck in behind. And so that whole barn space, that whole barn would be behind.
And the parking with it.
And so a lot of the parking off the street and away from the main street.
Yeah, I agree with that idea of pushing the barn around towards the back.
Maybe it won't impact, it looks like there's already some structure there. Maybe it won't impact the, the use of the property so much.
Right now, the barn is set back from the front of the house. So, I mean, they are not in the same, there's a porch sticking out 8 feet from the front of the house. And then, you know, it's probably back 25 feet from the main part of the house. So I just wanted to point that out.
But when you show the front of the proposed house, it doesn't look that far back.
They're looking in the garage doors.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is dimensionally, it's back 30 feet. So it's going to be set back. So if there's a number that makes it appear to be set back an appropriate amount, great. But it is definitely not in the same plane as the main gable of the house by about 25 to 30 feet.
But it doesn't appear that way from the front.
Bryce, can you show the Lumion model, please? There may be just some distortion with that image, so we can show you a model of it in, you know, bird's eye view or whatever, just so, you know, so we can sort of fly around it and see if it, you know, if it can present itself a little bit more authentically. It takes a little bit of time for this program to come up. So, but we have a 3D model of it that we use during the designing.
Are you guys seeing the model now?
Yep, we got it, Bryce. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yep.
It just doesn't look like it's 30 feet back from the front of the house at all. It overwhelms to me.
And the door faces Main Street.
Yeah. And the height of it also.
There's some reason why you want it out front?
Some reason why we wanted it out front. Well, the grade drops off quite a bit on that corner, so we need a retaining wall to side load to get in. So if we pushed it back any farther, it would just, you know, create sort of more of a larger retaining wall. We certainly could look at making it smaller. We could look at making it white and making it a garage as opposed to a barn. The idea of making it a barn was that it would actually diminish the volume of the house, but with a change in material and color. But it could be white, it could be look like a carriage house, or it could, you know, just look like the side of a garage, which we put those doors there to sort of make it, you know, barn-like. But if those sliding doors are, you know, offensive, then we could not have those sliding doors.
What about pulling the house forward? Leave the barn and pull the house.
Right, wouldn't that put aside the retaining wall?
Yes, yeah, it would. It would. Yep. We could consider pulling the whole house forward.
Yeah, if I could speak, this is Spiros. You know, we one of the thoughts in pushing the house back is the noise of Main Street. You know, we're not on Lower Main. We're on the highway to the South Shore.
I'm right up the street from you, so I get what you're saying.
It's getting well, yeah. So you would remember, like last summer when they were bringing those giant boulders down to Situate, and there was these 18-wheelers with, you know, 4-ton boulders rolling down the street, and the whole house shakes. And you know, if we have the opportunity to mitigate some of that, we're completely bought into streetscape. This whole main gable of the house is basically designed to mimic the exact gable of the old house that we love so much, even with the cutoff porch that doesn't wrap around the entire side. But the idea of pushing it back a little bit is really to get some respite from the noise, which isn't going to get better. It's just not.
You're going to stick in central air conditioning, aren't you?
We have central.
We don't have central. I'm on Main Street. I know just what you're talking about. But the houses have to line up the way they were lined up. I mean,
Well, the only thing I can tell you is that was a thought process, and around that. We also, we have quite a bit of landscaping that comes off that wall that we built. And our kids, for some reason, and you'd see them, and maybe that's why there was a thought process that we're still living in the house. Our kids tend to play in the front yard for, you know, for some reason, even though we have this giant backyard, they love to play in the front yard. So we tried to keep as much grass as we can in the front because that's kind of what we had before. And that's what our kids know and love. And that's why if you go there, you'll see lots of shirtless teenagers playing basketball still to this day. And you'll see my daughter playing soccer in the front yard with her Hingham High School team. So yeah, that was a little bit of the thought there.
You know what? Just to follow up on that, if you pull the house forward, you'll have a bigger backyard and they'll love it. I raised 3 children here and now grandchildren, and nobody's run into the street because they all get taught to play in the backyard. So make your backyard bigger, pull the house up closer to the other houses, parallel. Right now, it looks like a wonderful soccer field. I can see why they'd want to play there. But
Right, it would draw folks there. I do sympathize with the noise on Main Street, especially the motorcycles.
Yeah, the Nantasket crew that comes in on their Harleys, you know, summer, you know, should be, you know, you'd think things slow down, but they certainly pick up. So in any case, understood. Yeah. I mean, just to comment on a couple other things, there's a lot of discussions around a door.
Oh, and by the way, I have 3 large fire extinguishers now, based on your advice.
Yeah, we're on 32 Middle. The first thing I did, we have an old barn that looks like it could go at any time, and I mounted one on the wall, like, you know, the kind you would find in a hotel, Justin.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think there's a couple other points to note. I mean, some of the idea that this garage door faces the street. Both our garage doors face the street before. All of our parking was up front. We are working with a landscape architect. We're actually working with Sean Papich, which might go well or not well based on the last session that was held. But we're working with Sean on really softening the front. We're going to carry a really tall hedge, you know, a manicured hedge, as we've kind of put in, that's going to, you know, that's going to give us a little bit of privacy from the main road and maybe allay some of the concerns of what you might see from the street, but I mean, it wouldn't change that elevation and proximity. But you know, our intention is to make this home beautiful, make it historic, use historic materials, and quite frankly, spend a lot of money on it. But we're very much in a time crunch. We have 2 children in high school, and you know, any one at East, they're not going to be with us for long. So you know, we just ask for as much leniency, not to avoid it fitting in with the streetscape, but for really getting us back in our home, because it's going to be a very long build process for us. And we've gone through a 7-month insurance process. It's not over. And we've been displaced at 7 different houses since the fire.
And then just also, if I can just comment, there was an issue about the size and the depth and the width, but the original home was 7,000 square feet, and we're actually going smaller. We're trying to shrink the home down a bit from where it was, but also still trying to make great usage of this amazing 1.3 acre lot that we have on Main Street.
I'm wondering, I have no issue with the placement of the home. I think it's appropriate to the lot. I'd like to see it maybe come a little bit forward on the entire lot, just to be a little bit closer to the neighbors, but not, I don't expect it to be fully right up on Main Street. That's, I don't think, appropriate. But I'm wondering if it is a more of a contemporary vision of what your previous home was, and it is very beautiful. It certainly is. I'm wondering if there are some certain elements that certainly are more contemporary than your typical what we see, which is the metal roof, the shutters on the barn, actually the windows on either side of the sliding doors, on the faux sliding doors are. I'm wondering if there's a way to simplify the barn and even bring the roof down a little bit more as in the connector piece. And maybe that would just be enough to soften the effect of that side of the garage.
Yeah, I agree. Bring the roof level down would do a great deal to diminish the way the barn seems to overwhelm the rest of the house?
Well, my suggestion was the middle section, bringing the middle section down. I don't know if you heard me, Robert.
Why would you do that?
Well, but it's called, there's a hyphen effect. You have a larger mass and you have two masses. And if you diminish the central mass, it creates a little hyphen and reduces the overall mass. I don't know if you'd be...
It increases the size of the barn if you take down the middle part.
It actually, but the overall mass is reduced, making the overall effect less large. So those are just some thoughts I had.
Okay, our next sort of design task was to go take a look at the barn, make it smaller, make it narrower, which will bring it down, which will bring it down. We did have a connector that had a lower roof and had dormers, 3 dormers, in fact. And your eye was drawn right to those 3 dormers. So we switched it up and made it just straight across and lowered the ceiling in that connector so that it didn't draw any attention to itself. We could change the pitch of that connecting roof, which would effectively reduce the amount of roofing that you would see. It already is pretty low. It's a hallway, so we did drop it down to not quite minimum, but close to minimum head height. But we definitely could work on the barn for sure.
Yeah, I think my comment, and it could be just the way that it's rendered, the eye kind of goes right to the barn. And I think you've done some nice moves with that library, dining, porch space of the house. And I wonder if, you're trying to be respectful to the historic home that was there before in a modern way. And I generally lean a little more modern with the detailing and stuff, but I wonder if that section could have a little bit more interest to it, and downplay the barn a little bit. And as you're working with Sean, you talked about a hedge in the front and a field in the front. I'd want to be able to, whether the living space moves forward a couple feet, maybe there's a happy medium where that moves forward a couple feet and the barn moves back a couple feet to kind of take the emphasis off the parking. If there's a way with the landscaping to, give some views of that porch and of that, living space that's kind of pushed to the front. I don't think there's a bedroom on the second floor. You joked about it being your son's. I feel like if that was treated a little differently and maybe a little less interest on or emphasis on the barn would help.
Are you talking about the connecting roof? I'm sorry.
No, I'm talking about the gable.
The main gable.
Yep.
Okay, so are you saying to layer that with some period correct detailings?
I'm not big in the period correctness in a 2021 house, but right now I'm seeing the detail on the barn. I'm seeing the barn doors, I'm seeing the shutters, and everything else is kind of a little bit more modern. And I'm wondering if simplify the barn a little bit and maybe if there's a way to draw a little bit more attention. It could be as simple as a color, or it could be, something where that, because as you drive down Main Street, we see these historic homes, and a lot of them have been added to, and this is an all new home. And to me, it's looking like a 5,000 square foot home with a 1,500 square foot barn attached to it. And maybe there's a way to differentiate that front piece just a little bit. And like I said, it could be as simple as color, and let the barn blend in a little bit more.
Okay.
What is on the second floor of the barn that it necessitates it being so high?
Well, it's Spiros's office, and it's actually I mean, it's really not that high. We could lower it down, but he wouldn't. Right now, the window head is I think it's even below 6 feet. So those side windows, Bryce, can you show the side, or just go to the left? The small windows along the left on the east side, those windows are actually pretty low because the roof does come down low in the room. So we wanted to get light in on the sides. It's not absolutely necessary to get light in on the side. It would be nice to have it, but you know, that barn could be, you know, I think narrowing it up by a significant amount is a good step. And then we could look at, you know, just look at the section of it and see what we can take, what kind of air we can take out of it.
I have just one last comment too. On the right side of the front facade, I'm wondering if that right section could also be the roof line, the ridge line reduced. I think it would create the effect of just a little differentiation, would make a big difference over there. So the right side of the home is at the same, we'll be reducing the ridge line over there as well.
So that would step down and the left side would stay up?
No, I think they both, if you just reduced it from the main body, just a tiny bit would make a big difference.
Okay. You take a look at that.
Anyone else?
I'm still bothered by all that blacktop parking lot area. I wish I could go behind the house. And will there be some kind of pathway or something coming out of the front of the main part of the house leading over to the?
For sure. Yeah. So again, you know, trying not to show landscaping and leaving that to Sean, but there would be a pathway there. We would reduce, you know, like I said earlier, we had to show something. I think we showed too much of something. So we'll have a front walkway where guests would, you know, drive in and walk up to the front door, and we would reduce the parking, and the landscaping would shapen up as we move forward.
Yeah, Sean and Scott have already kind of started to take a pass at this. So where you see that that blacktop kind of in the middle of where the mudroom entrance is, you know, that wouldn't apply there. We're trying to take as much as we can across to the side, and then put in landscaping so you actually don't see it. So if you look at where the yellow Mini is, yeah, you wouldn't actually see the yellow Mini because there'd be landscaping there, right? So yeah, I think we've been pretty dedicated to putting, you know, significant landscaping in to privatize and make the lot look more mature. And we tried to save the old trees there at the same time. We weren't very successful. So this will look very, very different than what you see here today in this rendering.
And actually what we can do is we can get Sean's plant material and get his walls, and we can model it. So you'll be able to see, you know, see the proposed landscape in, you know, in addition to the revisions and revised, you know, house and barn in this manner.
Keep in mind that even though it's not an old house, it is in a historic district, so you can't use landscaping to cover up the structure. We have to be able to see it as people drive by and walk by. So just be careful about placing tall trees and tall hedges.
Yeah, I think Spiros was talking mostly about cars with blocking. You know, I don't think they want the house to be completely blocked off from Main Street.
And you already have a hedge out front on the sidewalk with shrubs, right? Yeah. You have to watch the height of those.
Yeah, I mean, generally those hedges are just going to be maintained right around 8 or 9 feet, you know, like manicured, almost to look more like privets than they are. Like right now, we need to let them mature so we can trim them.
Well, this is informal discussion. I don't know as we need to get into too many details at this point. So there's some more drawings.
No, no more drawings. No.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thanks for your feedback.
Thank you.
Be interested
welcome.
to see what you do with it. That'll be great.
Thank
So,
All right.
I will, let's see, you'll be scheduled for August the 19th. So, which is the next hearing. So I'll just need, Chris, you know, a full application.
Okay.
So we can talk about that. I can explain exactly what we need.
All right. I'm currently on a camping trip August 19th in the mountains in California. So I don't think I'm going to have any internet. So I might have Bryce or Eva help out with presenting the revision.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. Next is a informal discussion on 73 North Street, construction of a 2-story mixed-use building.
Andrea, this is George. I can share my screen if you would
That'd
like.
be great, George. Yeah, please do.
All right, let's see where we are. Okay, everybody should be actually looking at the next informal, but let me switch. Sorry about that. Well, thanks, everybody. My name is George Berg. I'm an architect. I live in Weymouth. I work in Rockland. I've done some work there. We appreciate the opportunity to have sort of an informal discussion about sort of the next step in the 73 North Street project. We greatly appreciated the interaction that we had with the group before in working on the development and restoration of that project. And I think as that starts to become a complete project, I think everybody can agree that, you know, the advice that we got from this group and the steps that we took, where at least my opinion is that it's paid off. So we look forward to getting input now from the rest of the group here on the back half of the lot. So I just wanted to start out in today's, you know, we're just looking at sort of a contextual style of the house, but so that we can explain to everybody what's happening is as you know, the front building on 73 North Street is nearing completion. The lot has been subdivided through the Form A process with the planning board, and that took place a little over a month ago. As we move forward now, we're looking at a new lot that's been created sort of in the back half, I would say just in front of where the existing garage is. And I want to point out that the garage still stands, although it's been approved by demolition by this board previously. They've been using it to lock supplies in and put their lunch table in there. That ultimately will be coming down shortly. So looking up Ship Street from north, we're talking about a site that's roughly here. You can see in the background the duplex units with the garage unders that were created on the adjacent property. Looking down Ship Street, this is the house that's been renovated. This is an older image of, obviously, and this is the next house that is up Ship Street, if you will, looking down towards the street into where the lot is. And as we are working with the development, with the civil engineers and through planning and zoning, the intent is to have the driveway for the back property be adjacent to the existing driveway here. That process and thought process was driven with the neighbors in mind here to keep the new structure. And it's going to be a single entry curb cut here, but the driveway will be actually 2 cars wide. So we wanted to try to keep the new structure as far away from the neighbors that are up at this end here as we possibly could. The style of the structure that we would like to propose, and I'm going to switch to a couple, and we'd like, we obviously would welcome your feedback, taking a little bit of time here to load. And I guess I got to reduce this because everybody's face is in the way. There we go. Can everybody see the screen of what would be the Ship Street elevation?
That would be facing Ship.
That would be facing Ship, yes. North Street is down on this side. So we're looking at a straight two-story gambrel style, obviously with a more of a colonial facade, really trying to balance it. We're again still working on the overall width, and that's going to be a result of finalizing the size of the new building, if you will. And if you know the zoning in this area, the underlying zoning is a business district. However, it's it's in the overlay district, which allows for residential use above and general office use, or in this case, well, this would be general office use on the lower level. So the intent right now is that the lower level here would be a professional office space, and the upper level would be essentially the living space. We did not want to go too crazy with matching the design of the existing house on North Street, facing North Street. We wanted to try to come up with something that was within the historical context. Again, two-story gambrels. First one appeared around here in about 1677, and that was built in Medford. It was owned by the Tufts family. So, and then it really became popular more in the 18th century, where it migrated from the Netherlands to London to America. So we think that it is period appropriate for this neighborhood. The overlay district, was more intended to create retail space on the North Street with residential space essentially above. It wasn't intended to really go up Ship Street and the side streets. It's not at this end of North Street. There's not going to be any expectation that there'd be foot traffic going to a potential retail.
Now I'm confused. The Ship Street, is this structure we're looking at here going to need to be office space in that first floor? I thought I heard you say.
Yeah, the overlay district zoning requires it to be office space. Yes, sir. If we just take a quick look at the side, and I'll just go over a couple of additional things, and then we'll open it up for comments and feedback, which we really would appreciate. And if I can get my computer to, there we go. So this would be the right side elevation facing the neighbor, and the driveway would be on this end. The left side would obviously be similar, but as you know, Ship Street grades down towards North Street. So the expectation is that there'll be a higher foundation exposure on the North Street end of the building that would be, for lack of a better term, abutting the North Street property. So we would need to consider how we would want to treat that foundation. It certainly wouldn't be appropriate to just have exposed concrete. We would need to look at whether it be a brick or a stone veneer on there, something more appropriate to be more indicative of what it would have been built had this building been built back when the period is designed. I also want to point out that while there's zero clearance tolerance for setbacks in the business district, our proposal, the property line is effectively on the sidewalk of Ship Street. And if you walk down Ship Street towards north, there is a sort of a granite retaining wall with this 4-foot picket fence there. Obviously, we would want to remove that, but we're trying to set the building back 10 feet so that while we could do setback averaging on the street, the 73 North Street project has, is about 1'4", 1'6" off of the sidewalk. We'd rather hold 10 feet back from that to give the ability for the sidewalk to pass by and travel down. We are going to likely need to have some granite curbing, and I'm going to go backwards, and I apologize for that, but it'll be clearer when you see that. Sorry, there's a little bit of a lead lag between this, but the idea is that, you know, we want to be able to walk in straight off of, I don't know why this is traveling so slow. Let's change to this and see what happens. So this is my version. Sorry, Andrea, yours was working too slow. We are working on the heights here, but again, you can see where the existing grade is roughly for the sidewalk of Ship Street. So we would want to, you know, we obviously want to come in at the high side on the driveway. There's likely going to be a pathway between the granite retaining wall where we're going to need to come down a couple of steps. The idea is we would be able to walk out on grade right onto Ship Street. And then we haven't made the decision yet to travel this walkway down to the adjacent property. But we would probably not want to do that because it's going to be it's a different lot. We'll have some kind of a retaining wall here and just continue the slope down in the drainage. I want to point out that the height for a single family residence or in a residential district allows a maximum of 35 feet. In the business district, we're allowed to have 3 stories. There's no height limit. You'll notice on this end, at least where our projected grade is right now, is about 36.6. I think from a scale standpoint, you know, the building is really intended to look more like residential, even though there'll be a business use on the lower level. So we were going to want to work on the height of the elevation because, again, the adjacent property is much higher. We obviously want to make, while we could really have 3 full stories here in this zone, we don't want to do that. We want to be respectful for the period design and any of that. So I guess, you know, that's pretty much it. We'd really appreciate some comments and feedback, you know, before we really finalize the plan and do a formal submission.
I like this very much, the style of the house and particularly the front entrance. I think that's very much in keeping with the neighboring houses.
Thank you.
Could you tell us how much linear footage there is from each side of the building to your property line?
I don't know the exact numbers, but this is roughly 25 feet on this side. This is 5 feet on this side. And what's on this side, this is abutting the parking area for the front 73B, 73 North. So again, we obviously don't want to go right up to the property line. We think that would be inappropriate. But it is the parking area. And the idea here, quite frankly, is that we could probably do something, again, with the finish on this foundation wall and maybe even some kind of trellis work just to kind of soften that. You know, with plantings.
Or brick or painted brick or something like that. Yeah. But it's a lovely design.
It's a beautiful, beautiful structure, and I can vision it down. I can see it down there. I'm just wondering, I thought we all had to be 20 feet away from our property lines when we put on an addition or build a house. How did you get approval for 5 feet?
So that is in a residential district. This is a business district, and the business district has different setbacks. And again, I think, you know, it's a relatively small site. We want to keep the building scale relatively small, but we also felt that it was important not to build right up to the front property line, although we could probably be allowed to do that. We wanted to try to maintain the 10-foot setback that would be more appropriate.
And as you were talking about where it is to the sidewalk, how much land is in the back of it? Is there enough to...
There's about 15 feet plus or minus. We're still working that out. And that's when we again look at the side elevation. We are just, right now, the way this is drawn is this is 25 feet from the front to the back. So we may have to scooch it in a little bit because we want to have some green space in the back. Yeah. Again, there is not a setback requirement, strangely enough. We would run into fire code problems before we run into setback problems, but we avoid both.
Right, but I suspect that you do improve its curb appeal by setting it back a little bit. Again, a lovely design.
It's beautiful.
I think the structure on its own is nice and seems like it could be appropriate. My biggest concern is how it fits in context with the adjacent structures, not only the structure on North Street, but the ones that go up Ship Street. So if there's a way that we can see that three-dimensionally, or even a street elevation with the structures near it, so we can see this in context,
Photoshop it in.
I think would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, Mike. We can certainly do that. As directly across the street, obviously, is another property that fronts on North Street that's had a couple of additions, but it's similar to more of a colonial look. As you travel up Ship Street, there's a kind of an eclectic mix, right? The property right next door is more of a, I really haven't categorized it, but I would say more of a modified bungalow, and then of course a similar house on the other side. And then once you get up over the hump, you have that sort of large ornate structure on the right-hand side, and that super funky mansard house that I know everybody's probably having a heart attack about on the right-hand side.
Not for years.
We can certainly create something like a streetscape so that you can see within the context of that, and possibly drop something onto sort of a bird's eye Google Earth view. Again, so we can see the massing of the house and the style of the house as it relates to everything.
That would be great. I do notice that between what I'm looking at on the screen and what I've got in my hand, the chimney kind of exists, and it doesn't exist, and it comes back again. Is that staying, or is my be right?
Well, I think it's appropriate. I think it's appropriate to have some kind of a chimney structure there. And in the interest of full disclosure, while you were all having a great time on your previous hearings, I was kind of sketching over it and playing with it, because on our original submission, I hadn't put a chimney on. But I think whether it's an active chimney or not, I think it's appropriate to the house, and we should consider that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's a good pickup. I'm impressed.
Interesting.
Well, we appreciate the feedback. Again, we really obviously respect the board in this area, and it's important to try to protect the context. Unfortunately, I saw there was an accident with a historic house right around the corner earlier today.
Terrible.
That's a shame. So luckily nobody was hurt, but nevertheless. So if there's no other comments, we'll proceed with developing this to where it can be a full submission. And Andrea, you and I can probably chat as to when we think we'll be ready to come before the board.
That's great.
With a formal submission.
Thank you for doing this. That's great.
I think a site plan would be helpful. That street view that Michael mentioned, noting the heights of the adjacent buildings.
Yep.
And then how to treat the exposed foundation. I think those are kind of the big ticket items.
Perfect. Yeah, and we're actually having some civil survey work done on the site tomorrow morning, so we'll have a much better idea of the actual site plan, Tracy, and get that ready to go. It is Tracy, right? I'm looking at your name. I'm sorry.
That is, yeah.
All right, awesome. You never know who somebody's sitting on someone else's computer. It could be anybody, right? Awesome. I don't need to switch my screen because if we're done on this one, I am also on 5 Pleasant Streets.
Good.
Perfect.
All right. This one is probably going to be a little bit easier, I hope. This is more of a submission, and I want to point out that we've already submitted to Andrea back in I think it was March or May for some of the basics here. We're not changing the footprint of this house in any way. We're not adding on to it. It was a house built in 1904. I think it was it's called the James F. Thom House. I don't know if that was the father of the famous author James Thom in Hingham or not, because I know James Tom, the author, was born in 1933, so I'm assuming he wasn't around when this was built. But what it is currently is what it was a 3-family, 3 flats. There is a construction underway on the interior that was permitted. What we filed with Andrea earlier was, replacement of the roof shingles with a color that's appropriate, patching and repairing exterior clapboards, which again will be selecting a period appropriate color based on Andrea's kits along with the trim. The current construction is basically converting the upper 2 floors into 2 flats, two duplexes, and the lower floor, which you can't see from really any public way, into just a single flat. I want to point out that here at the bottom of the screen is Pleasant Street, as you know, a public way, and this is called Pleasant Place, which is a private way. So we are coming back to the board for advice on a couple of things as we've really dug into the project. There's been a tremendous amount of the house, just like most historic houses that haven't been touched by people who respect them, was in deplorable structural condition. There's been massive structural upgrades inside the house, the back corners, everything was rotted. But as we now get into the project, there were a few anomalies that we would like to do. A couple of them are the entire house on the upper 2 levels currently has existing 2/2 double hung windows. At one point in the past, obviously, someone wanted to simply replace these 2 windows, and you'll notice that these are the only 2 6/6 windows on the entire upper levels, both upper levels of the existing house. What we would like to do is harvest a couple of 2/2 windows from the back side, which is not viewable from the public way, and ultimately replace those and restore them into these 2 window openings so that we have 2x2 appearance on all the windows that you can see from Pleasant Street in most ways. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is when they put this addition on the house, they weren't too concerned about structure because they literally sawed the bearing wall right out of it. It was dangling in space. It stood for years, but once we saw it, we didn't want to stand under it too long. But they also kind of threw this window in. Honestly, I think what they were trying to do is maybe align it with the door. If you look at it, and I don't think I have a better view of it in this, we'd like to simply remove this window. When you look at it from the straight side, this gable actually bears on the window. So it really looks unnatural and unbalanced. And our proposal would be really to just fill it in and match up the clapboards, splice the clapboards in so that it really just has, the 4 windows that exist on this, what was an addition, and the 2 windows here that exist. And I'll kind of run through all of these ideas and then open it up. The other thing that we would like to do is at one point, somebody stole the door from the old plywood ranch on Quincy Ave, and they put this flat panel laminated door here that's all peeled and delaminated. So obviously we want to replace that with something that's more period appropriate. And I don't mean to be snarky. I'm just, you look at what people have done to these things over the years, and then you kind of shake your head, and you know where they were coming from. You have no idea what their finances were or anything. The other big thing, and it's probably viewable better from here, is these existing pressure-treated railings, I guess. There was originally crossed railings here. The pictures that are in your Form B show this. They were painted white. And again, at one point, somebody replaced this all with pressure-treated wood. It doesn't meet the current code because these heights from the deck far exceed the 30 inches that is now allowable by code. So ultimately, and I'll show you some precedents, we would like to, we're going to keep the porch. We don't want to change it in any way as far as the structure goes. There's some great wood underneath that we can really come up with a nice color that you can kind of see when you're walking up the sidewalk here. But we'd like to replace this railing and wrap these columns with a more traditional balustered railing. And I'll show you some precedents after that. We would propose to leave, these are kind of the windows that exist. This bush is now gone. It will ultimately be replaced. But again, all the windows on this upper level are going to be restored. They're all 2/2s. We're taking them apart. We're getting rid of the old pigeon weights and putting in spring clips on the inside so we can insulate them. But from the outside, they'll look exactly the way that they look now. And then the windows, there's an old stairwell back here. This actually collapsed while we were on site. The workmen, when they were doing the demolition, were carrying the old bathrooms down, and luckily nobody got hurt. You can barely see this with the rhododendron gone. We've actually removed this stair, and we're proposing to build it around the corner, and it was some lovely plastic diamond, mesh on the bottom there. We want to just get it out of the way and take it from any visibility. And what you can't see here is there's a retaining wall. So there's actually about a 5-foot drop from right on the other side of this hedge that goes onto what is one of the doorways to the lower level. We're going to restore that, and we would like to just put a 4-foot cedar, rail fence there, just as a screen, and also to prevent people from obviously falling over. We need to have some kind of a guardrail there. It just doesn't meet the code. And then, again, this is just another view of the porch, and you can see, the structure appears to be intact. So we would sand this all down. We would work with Andrea to come up with an appropriate color for the underside, whether it's stained or whether it's robin's egg blue or something that's appropriate for porches of this height. And it's a lousy picture, but there's the plywood ranch door that we obviously want to get rid of as well. All joking aside. Also, what's hidden in these hedges is a meter bank, which, this is what you see when you look at the front of the house. We haven't got approval yet from the utility company, and we may have no control over it, but we're trying to get the overhead wires removed in this service bank turned around the corner so that at least it's not visible right from Pleasant Street. It'll be visible it will be partially visible on the other side, but I think we could probably screen that with a cedar fence that will be something nice to look at from from Pleasant Street as you look down to the backyard. So again, we're hoping that we can get approval to drop the service so we can not have any wires coming from the pole, which is right across the street from the Congregational Church, and try to clean this elevation up as best we can. If they don't allow us to do this, we're obviously going to just have to come up with some landscape screening or something so that we can hide it. And then this is the stair that comes off of that porch. I'm not sure I would really want to walk on this on a regular basis. So again, we're proposing to replace this, and I've got a couple of precedents because the retaining wall that drops off here, and this actually comes right up to the street, to the property line. We'd like to come down with a landing and probably take the risers down this side, and then we can create a walkway out onto the private way. And again, this would match, this would pretty much match, but these need to be replaced anyway. The building inspector is not going to let us keep them. So we want to obviously put something back, I think, that would be much nicer to look at. And this is definitely visible right now from Pleasant Street as you walk down. With regard to a couple of precedents, some of you have seen this slide before, but this is what we're thinking about. It will not be, this is what we used as a precedent for North Street. This would obviously not have the return leg, but the idea would come off the porch onto a landing and then access down to grade. This is sort of the idea there. And then as an additional precedent, this is a neighboring property, but this is kind of what we're thinking. I don't think we want to build the posts out this wide. The roof on our property is a little bit lower, but this is kind of the idea. We'd like to really get rid of those cross braces. my fear is that we could replace those cross braces, but in order to meet the code, we're going to need to put some kind of a mesh behind them, which I don't think will look very nice in the long run. And frankly, I think that this is more in keeping as you drive up and down Pleasant Street towards the school and Stoddard Road, and then as you circulate on Main Street, right up the which is right up there. This is this you know, our property is about four houses down from the Giannaros as you just enter Pleasant Street right off of Main Street. This is what we're thinking about as probably better than the plywood slabs. You know, we're not locked on this, but we're kind of thinking of something that gets some daylight. We don't want to put side lights in where the doors are, but this does get some daylight into the entries. And I think I have probably talked enough. That's our present. That's basically what we would like to do, and really open it up for comments.
I'll start if that's okay. Thank you for the presentation. So, Andrea, just to clarify something, is this the presentation or is this a pre-presentation?
This is a pre-presentation. This is an informal discussion so that we can provide feedback on what is being proposed so that George knows if he's on the right track or not.
And then there will be a final presentation.
Yes, with a formal application.
Okay. I have a couple things I'd like to talk about. Thank you for working on this house. It just is screaming for love, and so that's fantastic. On the front facade, I agree with you that where they added the window where the structural wall should be, the little 4 square window. I'm wondering if rather than just clapboarding all the way across, you could create the UFO corner board there so the essence of the original home is reinstated. And then I notice on the left side of the home, that window exists over there. And I'm wondering if potentially it could go where the odd window is, that odd little window, or it could go to the right of that similar window above the lower window.
Let me just make sure I understand. You're talking about this window here?
Yeah, well, I'm talking about the window you're going to be removing. And I wonder if it was taken from another location in the home because it does look similar in age and style to the one on the left facade. So I'm wondering if there is a way to either replace that odd little tinier window with it, or add it to the right of that similar window.
Well, in the overall plan, this is a bedroom. So, this actually, believe it or not, is the only window that goes into a bathroom. So I think what would be good is, I think there'd be no problem with taking this window out and providing a larger window into the bathroom. And obviously, if you look at that side, it's kind of this funky jealousy window that's there now, you know? So I think if we were going to repurpose it, I think that would be a great space to do it. I mean, we would have to provide window treatment on the inside and that can be dealt with, but that might be a good way to get rid of whatever that is.
Whatever that is. Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay.
I like that. I'm wondering why you need to change the direction of the stairs on the left side. Is that a code issue that you can't go right onto the street from the...
Well, our concern would be this is a private way, so we have a lot of latitude. We could certainly take a look at that, but my concern would be just from a safety standpoint, I guess. This is going to be one of the emergency ways out for one of the units, and God forbid there's a fire and people are coming out the door and running down the stairs. We'd be concerned that there might be safety equipment or something there. In an emergency, obviously you're trying to get out of the building as quickly as possible, but also in general, I think it would be safer to turn it. If you can envision coming in and out, if the occupants have kids, you're kind of walking right on. There's, we all know it, right? We've all grabbed our kids' arms. They're going to go right down the stairs,
So the porch is staying, but just there'd be an extra 3-foot projection, and then the stairs would turn to the front of the home.
That's correct. So there'd be a landing here that matches the railing, and then they would come down to here where we could obviously landscape that and at least make a landing pad. We looked at whether or not we could go in the other direction towards the back, but that would require us to move the stairs down another bay because we have that big retaining wall there. There's not enough room between where these stairs are to get your a legal set of stairs down. You literally land over where the retaining wall is.
So behind that large bush, which I assume you probably pull out, there's a retaining wall about 4 feet to the left of this existing stairwell, and then an enclosed.
Yeah, let me see this. This might be a clearer way to look at it. So that retaining wall that's under all these bushes, or at least was under all these bushes, essentially lines up with this post. So you can see here that because of the height, we have, a significant run of stairs down to get to grade. And we would have to have, at least a 3 foot by 3 foot platform here that's leveled with the porch. And then we wouldn't have enough room to get the length of stairs that we need. We would end over that retaining wall, which we obviously can't do. The only way we could make that work is to potentially move the stairs down another bay. I don't think it's horrible, but it's kind of nice that the door lines up with where that platform would be. And then we could put the platform here and probably have enough run distance to get a stair down before we hit that retaining wall. Because we have to come down onto at least a 3 foot platform, right? So that's the secret of the math. You have, if we're going this way, you have the 3 foot platform at least, you get your run of your stairs and you got to come down onto another 3 foot platform.
Right.
And there's just not enough room to do that.
I wonder if it does make sense to move the stairwell forward, because you already have, then you're coming out in the direction at least, and you're not competing with the front door. I guess I'm trying to keep the focus as the front is the front and the side is the side. And if these two stairwells are facing the same direction, I'm just wondering if maybe by moving it a bay under the stairwell to, or the projection on the platform, the landing for the stairwell off the window, that allows you to have the stairs go towards the back.
We could certainly look at that, and I would feel better about aligning it with something, right? I guess I'm just kind of built that way, but you can see that this window is essentially centered on those posts. And then the only thing we would want to do is make sure that we keep the rhythm of the main post. So we may have to make an adjustment here to just kind of, I hate to say this, but fake the eye. But I think I can certainly lay that out. And if we can get let me just say, our preference would be to have the stairs go to the back. That's where the parking is and all of that stuff. So if the board would allow that, that would, and if it works mathematically, that would be an acceptable scheme.
Okay, and then my last, I think that's it, actually. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
No, just one last thing. I guess there's no way to square, if you're going to replace that little tiny window with the window from the front, potentially, is there any way to put it symmetrically over the front door, over the side door?
Let me just check. We'd like to have this is actually where the bathroom is, and it existed. You can see where the vent came through the roof already. Again, we're relocating that because it's generally not a good idea to have a sewer vent next to an operable window, but that's just me. But yeah, we could look at that and see if we could get this set up. You know what, I think that we're going to be able to pull that off because thinking of the plan, there's a little pathway under this roof. We have enough headroom to go from the master bath, and that's actually from the master bedroom. That's part of the ensuite master bath. So I think we could do that and really kind of make that symmetrical. That'll probably help the overall dimension or the overall appearance. If this comes over a little bit, it throws the balance, I think, a little better.
Fantastic. And then one last question. I see on the rear portion of the home where the roof comes down, it seems like there's not much of an overhang there with no trim board or anything.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just wondering if that could be.
Well, we weren't planning on changing the trim of the house. I will say this, A lot of that needs to be replaced. It's literally hanging off, and I don't know if it's ever seen a paintbrush. And this is a lousy photograph. But I think that if, you know, and you can see the way they built it, the window heads are literally right at that, you know, sort of right at the heads of the windows. But we can certainly look at that when this part of the house was actually an addition, as was the other side. This was the original house right here, you can see. So we can certainly look at whether or not we can clean up that trim. I mean, we want to balance it out, and I think it's going to be better to do that anyway, because the, you know, this facade, the front facade and the back facade, actually the clapboards are in pretty decent shape, and we feel that they can be restored. The south facade, which is in the back, has just taken a beating from the weather over the years. We're expecting to replace all those clapboards, but again, that's not really visible, but they're going to be replaced with clapboards that match this, and be painted obviously the same color.
Terrific. And then I assume all these bushes will be pulled out, and there'll be some kind of skirting around the
The bushes are long gone, and yes, so our intent would be to provide skirting, vertical slats skirting, similar to what you see here. And well, it's hard to see here, and part of this is stone, but yes, we would be looking at running the skirt all the way around with vertical slats.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I think if we can keep the comments of a general nature, since this is an informal discussion, and we've still got some more items to go, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I think definitely on the right track, giving some love to something that has not, it needs some maintenance. So.
Yep. Well, I know there are more items on your agenda. I mean, I appreciate the feedback that I've got. You know, if anybody has any additional comments, I've been working pretty closely with Andrea on this all through the process. And obviously you could communicate those through her. You know, we talk on a pretty regular basis. So if there's anything that comes up, please do that. But I appreciate your time tonight. I know it gets late. So thank you for hanging in there.
Thank you for doing this. Good project.
No problem. Thank you.
And yeah, you had to wait around, so thank you.
No, it's quite all right. It's all a learning experience.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. I will sign off and let you get back to the rest of your agenda.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Thank you.
Okay, I think, Mr. Chairman, we are at, I sent out the information about the accessory dwelling unit study committee. And in talking with Tracy, I said, you know, I mentioned that, gee, I haven't had any, doesn't seem like I've had any interest. Nobody's talked about it or asked further questions. So Tracy said, well, I used to be, when we lived in Texas, I used to be on a study, did a lot of work with accessory dwelling units. So unless anybody else wants to take up this challenge, I think Tracy may be our best bet, because we have to, our role is to make sure, we need to understand how these accessory dwelling units are going to impact historic districts. And so Tracy can keep us apprised of that and provide our feedback. And everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Yep, that's fine.
Yes.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Tracy. Okay, great. That's settled. And then
minutes.
Minutes, yeah. These are, I still don't have, I could just tear my hair out. I've been trying to get the minutes from April, and I'm just gonna have to do them myself, I think. I don't know, but it's just, it's like pulling teeth. But anyway, we will get them. And Miss Tracy did her first set of minutes and they were outstanding.
And this is the June 10 minutes.
Yes, this is the June 10 minutes.
Yeah.
From Miss Tracy.
And they are, it's a nice set of minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I was so thrilled. They said, oh, these are fabulous.
Yeah. Bill, I try to find something where I haven't found anything I'd want to change.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So thank you. You want to?
I move we accept the minutes.
I'll second that.
June 10th.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Okie dokie. All right. Thank you.
So
I guess, go ahead.
my question was, you said you were going to call the two applicants about setting up site visits. When were you? When were you thinking?
Well, let's see. So if the meeting is on the 19th, we've got Saturday the 14th, we've got Saturday the 7th of August, and then we still have, well, we've got the 31st of July.
All those work for me.
Okay. I mean, is anybody going away or?
No.
Nope.
I'll be away the end of July, but
Any one of those Saturdays is good for me.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, I just realized I'm away the 7th.
The 7th, okay.
Yes.
So we'll try not to do it then.
14th then?
Yeah. So something informal I wanted to throw out is, since Ben has left and Hans has left and Michael might only be around a few more months, and we haven't seen each other in a while, I was thinking after our next site visit of inviting everyone over for some tea and coffee and a very informal, small gathering.
Wouldn't
after one
that
of our
be
site
nice?
visits.
Oh,
Great
how
idea.
nice, Tracy.
where do you live?
World's End.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, it's beautiful. Beautiful view.
If it's the 14th, I could be there.
Yay!
Ah, there you go.
Mary Ann is moving back.
Yay!
Yay!
She sold her
At the
house.
party at her house.
Yeah, she sold her.
You could.
Glad to have another taxpayer.
Mary Ann was, her house sold very quickly in Altadena. And it's so, would you have a bidding war? I mean, it sold over the asking price.
Sold for $335,000 over asking.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
well, then you should go to the party.
I know. It was open for a week. About 60 people came through by appointment only. There were 6 offers, all starting at the gate at 100,000 over asking.
Oh,
The one that I accepted was all cash. No,
You are so smart, Mary.
Where was this?
Altadena, California.
Altadena, California.
wow.
Yeah, Altadena, California, above Pasadena. It's a great property. I just love this house. I like 1030 Main Street too, but just two different worlds apart. But it was absolutely amazing. I felt like it was a child that I had raised that just was successful.
Glad to have you back.
Yeah, it's too bad there's capital gains tax. My
right.
tax basis, pardon?
Well, actually, paying taxes is a great problem to have. Means you made money.
Right, that's a good point. That's a good point. But I'm anxious to stop straddling the fence and get back to Hingham and, you know, make the house, Virginia's house, look lived in, and, you know, probably come before the commission with some outside repairs. So, yeah, but I'll be back August 8th is when.
Oh, glad to hear that.
Great.
That's terrific.
That's great.
Yeah.
Andrea, is there a date for in-person meetings?
Oh, you know, that's another thing. I had discussed, Mike and I had discussed it at one point, and I don't know, Mike, tell us your feelings about the, you know, remote meetings, and then Tracy, maybe you can chime in your thoughts.
Yeah, I think my opinion, and this is just one person's opinion, is that there's certainly convenience to being home, but not only just sort of not traveling, although town hall's not that far, but just for the purposes of being able to share screens.
Yeah.
Are always helpful, particularly if there's some exhibit that maybe an applicant didn't submit, but was able to bring it up as part of the meeting. Just because they were at their desk and at their computer, it was sort of helpful. So that was my opinion when Andrea and I were talking about this a while back. So, but I think it's open. Is that the case, Andrea?
Yeah, you can, you just, they're discouraging hybrids. In other words, like some people remote and some people in the building, which I can see. I mean, what a pain in the can that would be. Yeah. But anyway, so I don't know, Tracy, do you have thoughts about remote versus in-person?
I mean, I've been going back to the office since Memorial Day. I deal mostly with the city of Boston, even though City Hall technically is open, and they've still been holding all their meetings remotely still. And I know Boston has been saying that it's been nice because they actually think that they've been getting more public participation remotely, because it's easier for people to log on to their computer from home than it is for them to travel down to City Hall, especially in the evening. So, I mean, generally I like seeing people. That's why I'm looking to invite everyone over. But I do see advantages of remote.
And I see lots of disadvantages to remote because it's so impersonal, and I'm tired of sitting in front of a screen. I like to see people face to face. So
that's how I feel, Robert. I'm on the screen like 10 hours a day. Kills me.
Yeah. So do you want more?
I would say also, I think the committee's attendance is actually better because I'm at my mother-in-law's house and attending. So, you know,
we have Mary Ann too.
A bunch of times when I wouldn't have been able to make it otherwise. So there's a lot of pluses, and I hear Robert's opinion too. There's some sad losses too.
Yeah.
I do like the screen base, as terrible as the, you know, Robert's observations are true, but there are so many conveniences to this.
Well, I think there is a point at which we will no longer be able to do this.
Yeah.
And that would be, I don't know, whenever the governor says that, but right now, if I know, sorry, Robert, but
I am too.
Shall we continue remotely for the time being?
Robert, I'll come to your house. We'll remote together.
All right. Well, I'll have a glass of wine or something.
And you'll have company, but we'll be remote. And Tracy, I have to tell you, you have to get a light on your face. You look like you're in the witness protection program.
I know. I tried to pull the computer out further, but
a little flashlight under your neck.
That's funny, Carol. I was thinking that too, Tracy.
Yeah, it's very scary.
To see you.
Very scary.
Okay, everybody, are we set?
All right.
Great meeting. Congratulations.
Move to adjourn.
Wait a minute. Tracy has to do a roll call vote.
So Anyone for a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, meeting's adjourned.
Good stuff,
Thank you.
Tracy.
All right.